Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Malden School Committee meeting on Monday, May 2nd, 2022. The time is 6 o'clock p.m. So we have a rather light agenda this evening. No one liked my humor? All right. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pledge allegiance to our flag. We'll then have a moment of silence for all those who have served our country and continue to do so. Our clerk will then take attendance to ensure that we have a sufficient number of members here to allow us to conduct business this evening. Then we will introduce our translation services for the evening, and then we will get into this evening's agenda, which consists of approval of minutes, followed by public comment, the superintendent's report, and then we will go over a number of subcommittee reports. There's several motions and resolutions. We will then go to personal privilege, followed by executive session for the purposes of approving our minutes from April 4th, and to also conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations. Then, depending on what happens there, and if it's so voted, we will come back out and potentially take action, but if not, we will then move adjournment until our next meeting, which is set for Monday, June 6th at 6 p.m. here in City Hall. So if there are no questions from the members, I would ask everyone to please rise and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of all those who have fought for our country and continue to do so today. Thank you. We will now have our clerk call the roll.
Mayor Christensen,
Here.
Mr. Drummey,
Here.
Mr. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Spadafora, Ms. Macklin, Mr. Weldai,
Here.
Mr. Gray, Mr. Bernard, Ms. Rose Zyberg, Superintendent Noriega Murphy, Student Representative Jean.
So we have a quorum sufficient to allow us to conduct business this evening. We will now take a moment to go over our translation services for this evening, which are being provided by Rosetta Languages. So we'll have Mr. Weldai segue over to that.
All right, we'll kick it over to you, Danielle, to start us off.
Thank you very much, Adam. Good evening, Malden, and Eid Mubarak to everyone. My name is Danielle, and I am here with the team of interpreters from Rosetta Languages. We are going to give the instructions to how to use interpretation in each of the 7 spoken languages. So y'all can just hold tight, and we'll give those instructions. I'll start with Arabic. مساء الخير، السلام عليكم، وكل عام وانتم بخير بمناسبة العيد. اليوم عندنا ترجمة باللغة العربية. إذا أردتم الاستماع إلى الترجمة اضغط على رمز الكرة الأرضية اللي راح يظهر على الشاشة بعد قليل واختر اللغة العربية. إذا كنت على هاتف محمول عليك أن تضغط على 3 نقط في أسفل الشاشة ثم اختيار ترجمة باللغات أو language interpretation ثم اختيار اللغة العربية أو Arabic وأخيرا اضغط على كلمة تم أو done. شكرا جزيلا. I will pass it over to Spanish.
Buenas noches y bienvenidos a todos a la reunión del Comité Escolar de Malden, hoy el 2 de mayo. Mi nombre es Emily, estoy aquí con Rosetta Languages y tenemos interpretación en español. Si desea escuchar esa presentación en español, en un momentico vamos a encender la función de interpretación y entonces simplemente ubícase al fondo de su ventana de Zoom y ahí hacer clic en el globito y escoger Spanish. Si se está conectando con móvil, empuje los 3 puntitos, de ahí escoge Interpretation, pues Spanish, pues Done. Si tiene cualquier problema técnico, por favor comunícase con nosotros tras el chat y disfruta de la reunión. I will pass it over to Portuguese.
Olá, boa noite. Meu nome é Raíssa e eu vou ser intérprete português hoje à noite. Daqui a pouco a gente vai ligar a função de interpretação. Se você estiver participando de um computador, você vai ver um globo na parte de baixo da sua tela. Por favor, clique nesse globo e depois escolhe português. E depois tem que selecionar done ou finalizado. Se você estiver participando de um celular, depois que a gente liga a função, você vai ver 3 pontinhos na parte de baixo da sua tela. De novo, escolhe português e depois done ou finalizado. E qualquer dúvida, você pode escrever no chat. Obrigada. Thank you. I will pass it now to Haitian Creole.
Good evening. My name is Nikita Lamo. I'm the Haitian Creole interpreter for tonight. Bonsoir, nom c'est Nikita Lamo, c'est moi qui ai interprété à soya. Nous avec Rosetta Languages. Nous pouvons dire que soit regarder l'ordinateur ou c'est fonction interprète là. Sur l'ordinateur, ou un petit globe, ou petit globe là, ou peser sur lui. Après ça, on va marquer Haitian Creole. Après ça, on va écrire done. Si c'est le mobile, si sur le cellulaire, on va prendre 3 petits points. Sur 3 petits points, on va cliquer sur 3 petits points. Après ça, on va prendre quelle langue, on va cliquer Haitian Creole. Le fin cliquer Haitian Creole là, on va peser done. Si vous avez une question, on va écrire sur le chat là. Les filles nous-mêmes, nous répondons. OK, merci. I'm going to pass it on to Vietnamese.
Good evening, my name is Lynn. I'm will be the Vietnamese interpreter for the day. Xin chào quý vị, tên tôi là Linh. Tôi sẽ là người phiên dịch tiếng Việt của Rosetta Languages cho quý vị hôm nay. Một khi chúng tôi đã kích hoạt tính năng phiên dịch, xin vui lòng bấm vào biểu tượng quả địa cầu trên màn hình và chọn ngôn ngữ là tiếng Việt Vietnamese để được nghe tiếng phiên dịch trực tiếp. Nếu quý vị đang dùng điện thoại thông minh, smartphone, xin bấm vào 3 dấu chấm rồi chọn ngôn ngữ phiên dịch Language Interpretation, rồi sau đó chọn tiếng Việt Vietnamese. Sau đó là bấm done xong. Xin cảm ơn quý vị. Thank you. Now I pass it on to Mandarin.
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Terry. I'll be your Mandarin interpreter. 大家好，我是 Terry， 我会是你们的国语翻译。待会呢，你在屏幕下方呢会看到一个地球的图标，你点选地球的图标，然后再选择 Mandarin， 你就可以听到国语的频道了。如果你是用手机或者平板电脑上来的话呢，你可以选择屏幕下方的3个点，然后再选 N Language Interpretation 语言翻译的功能，然后再选择 Mandarin， 你也可以进入到国语的翻译。好，谢谢大家。I'll pass it to Cantonese, please.
Thank you so much, Terry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna. I'll be your Cantonese interpreter for the meeting tonight. 大家好，我係 Anna。我哋今天晚上嘅廣東話同聲傳譯。一陣間見到地球儀嘅時候，麻煩你揀 Cantonese， 咁你就會去到廣東話嘅翻譯頻道。如果用手機嘅話咧，麻煩撳嗰3個點，再揀更多，再揀 Cantonese， 咁亦都會成功咁去到廣東話嘅同聲翻譯頻道。多謝晒，一陣間見。Thank you. Back to you, Danielle.
Thank you, team. And Adam, I just noticed that we have our other ASL interpreter here under his email address, athmists@aol.com. That is James Wiggins. If you can promote him to a panelist as well, that would be fantastic. And let me also recognize both of our amazing ASL interpreters who are here providing language access. Thank you, Elizabeth and James. And just a couple of brief questions for you, Adam, before we activate the interpretation. One is, would it be possible to turn on closed captioning? Some of the interpreters have found it helpful if speakers are ever going very fast.
I think so.
Awesome. And my other question is, if the meeting goes past 8, would you like us to do what we did at the last CPAC meeting, and each of the interpreters can sort of maybe a few minutes before that type into the chat in their language to see if there's anyone from that language still on the meeting, so we know if the interpreter should stay on or not. Does
That would
that
be
sound
great.
good?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so
Danielle, Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak, Mayor Gary. Thank you.
And shukran, masalama.
Elafu. So interpreters, as when we get, to close to 8 o'clock, if you can, for all of the spoken languages, if you want to put in the chat in your language, a message to see if there's anyone from that language still on. And if you're able to stay past then, if there is someone on, then that's terrific. If there's nobody on, then you're good to go at that point. And if you have to go, I guess, yes. Emily.
I have a question just because I was like to put the interpreting instructions in the chat, and I don't see a chat today on my bar.
Actually, you're right. I didn't realize that. We only have Q&A today, so I guess we can't do that. So, yeah, I guess, Adam, do you want us to just use our best judgment?
I would, maybe use your, I would say let's use our best judgment just to see whether or not, are you able to do that?
We can't know
We can get
who's.
the chat enabled while we're gonna build the plane while we're flying it.
Sounds good. All right. And same thing for ASL, I guess, if you guys want to just put a message in at that point, however is the best way to see if anyone is on at that point who still needs your services. And obviously if you guys are able to stay past. So, thank you very much. And with that, Adam, I think you can go ahead and turn on the interpretation channels. Everyone unmute yourself and make sure your microphone is connected.
All right, and with that, the interpretation channels are now live. And I will spotlight our ASL interpreter as well as our members. And back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Weldai. So just a couple of other housekeeping details. When speaking, let's all try and speak slowly to allow our translation services to be able to translate as best they can. And then also, in accordance with the state open meeting law, we do want to let everyone know here that Mr. Drummey from Ward 1 and Mr. McCarthy from Ward 2 are in attendance remotely this evening. And so what that means for us is we will be taking roll calls for all of our business this evening. So if there are no questions from the members, we will now proceed forward. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from April 4th, 2022. Motion by Ms. Spadafora, seconded by Mr. Weldai. Any questions on the regular session minutes of April 4th, 2022? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll. Stand by. Try now.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora? Yes. Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray? Yes. Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Zeiber? Yes. Mayor Christensen?
Yes. So that carries unanimously. Now we're at public comment. This is an opportunity to address the school committee. We only ask that you state your name and address for the record. And obviously with this evening's large crowd, we ask that you keep your comments to just, let's call it brief, very brief. And before we take public comment, what we ask everyone is anybody that's here on the non-AEAP program, we'd ask you to go first. So is there anybody here that's wishing to address the school committee on anything other than AEAP? Anybody online?
And just a reminder for our folks online, to participate in public comment, you just need to either type your name and address into the Q&A or use the raise hand feature on Zoom or dial *9 if you are on the telephone. Any non-AEAP public comments online? Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
All right, everybody. So what we're going to do is we have a rule that states that the school committee can allow public comment up to 30 minutes. Okay, so the time is 6:15 p.m. And if you recall at our last meeting, it went well over an hour. So we're going to see if we can bring this within a half hour in an effort to allow us to get on with this evening's agenda, which includes a discussion on the reason why a lot of you are here. We also have a number of other items that we have to address this evening. So again, with that being said, we're going to limit public comment to 30 minutes in total this evening. So with that being said, the time now is 6:16 p.m. and we'll open up public comment for anyone here wishing to address the school committee. Again, we only ask that you state your name and address for the record. Public comment is now open. Step right up.
So we'll toggle between in-person and online. And again, for the folks online, just use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if you were using the telephone.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Julie Schmidt. I live at 16 Dartmouth Road in Melrose. I have taught the second grade AEAP program at the Linden for 6 years until it was paused in the 2021-2022 academic school year. I strongly believe the AEAP program benefits and enhances student learning. I was able to use 3rd, 4th, and even 5th grade resources with my previous second grade classes. Prior to teaching the second grade AEAP program, I taught 5th grade at the Linden for 12 years. After finishing up poetry, planting, and states of matter units, I gave my second graders 5th grade MCAS practice questions on these topics, and they were able to complete them and were thrilled to find out they were doing 5th grade work. Our current AEAP students will miss out on having their academic needs met if we remove and not improve this unique program. Thanks to a dedicated group of parents on the Advanced Parent Advisory Council, they have proposed a detailed plan to provide services and support from UConn and MADGE, Massachusetts Association of Gifted Education. It is time our city steps up and supports all students and ensures Malden remains a city with a strong past and a proud future. For years, we've had no funding, lack of support, and no permission for teacher training. Just think of what we could accomplish for our students if we had the proper funding, support, and training. It is important to also mention that the AEAP program creates a safe and successful place for students who might experience anxiety, social struggles, or a feeling that others don't understand them. This program is making a difference for our students, and it's our job to continue to make sure we help our students reach their utmost potential. On a side note, I wanted to mention that I have had at least 2 students in the past on IEPs and multiple students with 504 plans. It's my sincere hope you will consider supporting and voting to unpause the AEAP program. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to go online. Anybody?
Seeing none, so we can take another in-person comment.
Good evening. My name is Kate Carboni. I live at 497 Locust Street, Danvers. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am the 4th grade AEAP teacher, but first and foremost, I am here as an advocate for students. Not my students, all students. I've stayed pretty quiet up until this point, but with all that has transpired in the past month and a half, I feel compelled to speak. It has become clear how our personal opinions and biased views can overshadow our decisions. We need to take a step back, look at this objectively, and make a decision that is based on research, evidence, and expert knowledge. It has also become clear that we hold on to many myths and misconceptions about accelerated learners and learning, some of which I didn't realize I held on to. Some include accelerated students don't need as much help and will be fine on their own. Teachers challenge all students so they'll be fine in the regular ed class. that these students should be in regular ed classes to provide other students with role models. Children can't be gifted if they have a disability. These programs require too much funding. And the last one, and maybe the most damaging, that these programs are elitist. Two misconceptions people hold regarding this specific program is one, that students on IEPs and 504s are not allowed into the program. This is not true. These students have never been discriminated against. The second, that because it is not an authentic program, it is not beneficial. I will admit I was this person. I was hesitant to teach this class, and for some time it was difficult to do my job in good conscience when I didn't agree with the way in which it was run. Over time, despite its flaws, the positive impact the program has had on students' lives and education has become more and more evident. This unique experience has allowed me to see students thrive who would have otherwise been left behind and not have reached their full potential. If this was evident in an unsupported program, imagine how successful this program could be with a plan that has been laid out. We need to provide for these students as we have for the other subgroups in Malden. I always saw Malden Public Schools as inclusive and have been proud to be an educator here. But the vote to eliminate the program without other opportunities or initiatives to take its place, I realize that we might not be the inclusive district we consider ourselves to be. The question now might be, does the district value accelerated learning and learners? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now. And by the way, you don't need to raise your hand. You come right up whenever you're ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hayam Ugari, as you might remember me from Monday, April 4th. I live at 11 Skyline Drive, Malden. On Monday, April 4th, 2022, I stood in this room on the front of you to ask the subcommittee to take another thought about the AEAP program, Academically Enriched Advanced Program. I left the City Hall of Malden with hope and faith that my voice was heard, especially when I realized that Mayor Gary, who read for me when I was a toddler at the Library of Malden, was here and will support the success of every child. Today, I am back here to appeal to you to unpause, enroll, and expand the AEAP program. I was always told no child should be left behind in the school system. Please apply this to our case. At the end, I am asking you to make an effort to imagine how you would feel or act if you were in the same situation as us. Please give us your voices. Do not penalize us for needing more challenges, and instead, challenge more students. We are the future. Thank you.
Now, if you were smart, you would end right there, okay? Anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now. Welcome. What's your name?
My name is Emiliano Bernales, and I'm really sad that we might not have the gifted program next year. I have a lot of fond memories about it, and it would be so boring if we just did reading, and math, and nothing else fun. For example, a couple of days ago, I did a butterfly project on a Peruvian butterfly. I made a mobile, drew my butterfly in all of its stages, and wrote facts about it. I thought it was fun because at the end of it, I could see all of the hard work I put into it. Also, we did a culture project, and I learned so much about other people's cultures. I wouldn't have known my friends so much if it weren't for the AEAP program. Also, I learned a lot about my culture, too. If it weren't for the program, I would be so bored to death because they would probably teach us things I already knew. Thank you to my classmates and teachers who are making my life better. A special thanks to Mrs. Gangemi, Miss Schmidt, Miss Carboni, and Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
All right, we've got an online public comment from Kevin Graham.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Graham.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Your Honor.
Good evening.
My name is Kevin Graham. I'm part.
Kevin, you there?
And gets added help
There we go.
because she doesn't learn at the same pace as her classmates. And by law, it's given to her. But it's my child that's in kindergarten right now that I'm most concerned. She reads, she does multiplication, and it's hard at this point to watch her digress. She was so excited to go to school, and it isn't even the end of the school year, and she doesn't like school with the same passion as she did at the beginning. I know it's a matter of equity, and when I took a hard look at the word equity, it says that it's where we meet people where they are. So we're meeting my oldest daughter where she is as a student that needs added help. I want to know, if you eliminate this program, how are you going to reach her sister, her sibling? I'm begging you guys to consider that. Everyone that's in this audience today has talked to you in the past, has shown up and showed out, are letting you know what the needs are of that school. For those of you that don't live in Ward 8, for those of you that don't attend the Linden STEAM Academy, please don't make a decision for families who have children in these locations that needs these services, just because it's not a service where you are. Instead of stepping back, I think it's time for Malden to step up. It doesn't really cost you anything. It's just a program that's there to help children grow. And after all, growth is what we need in all parts of our community. Thank you for hearing my words, and I pray that you act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Anybody here wishing to address the school committee can do so now. Please. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Betsy. I am in 3rd grade in the accelerated class. I love to learn. I love to be challenged. Some other kids might love to be challenged too. So please don't take that away from us. Instead, you can make the program better so that other kids can be the best they can be. And maybe you can give some other kids a chance to experience what an accelerated class is like. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the school committee?
Good evening. My name is Aria. I am in 3rd grade in the accelerated class. I want to keep the accelerated program because it helps grow my brain. Also, other kids want that too, but they can't because people keep wanting to take that away from us. They're only thinking about what the adults want and not what the kids need. This is our education and our future. Fix it, don't nix it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else wishing to address the school committee can do so now. Just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Gensileno. I'm located at 41 Tea Party Way.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. And I know I've spoken a few times in front of you in favor of the AEAP. It's interesting because I've never done this before, but issues like this make even politically indifferent parents like me become very involved activists. So that's why I'm here again. Sorry, I took some notes this time, so I don't go in tangents. But last week I was listening at the subcommittee meeting, and a lot of the issues that came up were issues that we as parents have been saying for a while, that those are issues with the program. None of those issues, though, are directed at kids. All of those issues are a failure of the administration to properly and transparently manage the program. Therefore, there was talks about dissolving the program with no viable plans to address the needs of the children currently involved in the program or the children that are still coming up and trying to use the program. In effect, the subcommittee voted to punish the children for the sins and the failures of the administration to manage the program properly over these years. Obviously, as everything has a silver lining, this one does too. I found myself in the last month reading more about the Malden wards, about all of you, about the elections in Malden, about when they occurred, about how many people vote, which it's crazy because I used to be part of the big majority of the 80% that rarely have never voted. And it's been eye-opening because it's a good wake-up call as to the importance of our local government and what impact it has on our and our children's day-to-day life. So it opened my eyes to how important the next election cycle is, even though it's 18 months from now, but that's around the corner too. So I will close this with respectfully asking this subcommittee to ponder on the following two paths that we can take in here before you vote as a full committee. Are you going to punish children in need because of a repeated and prolonged failure of administration and elected officials to properly manage a meaningful program? Or are you going to vote to continue providing the much needed program, improving it, bettering it, and continuing providing that service to the kids that need it? Thank you again for your patience. Thank you for listening at me, and I really appreciate all of you. Please help our kids flourish. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a public participant from Zoom, Kaleza Graves.
Hello, I am Olivia Graves, Kaleza Graves' daughter, and I would like to say, as a student of Linden Senior Academy, that we should keep the AP program because all students learn at different paces, and it is the responsibility to meet students where they are. It is the responsibility of the school committee to make sure that all students are matched at that all students should learn at their pace. And if they have a different pace of learning, we should not take that away from them. We should better the program, and try to make it more sustainable for other children. It is not equitable for kids not to be met where they are. Thank you.
Thank you. So everybody, it's 6:33, and we're going to go until 6:46.
Okay. Hi, my name is Eden Garhart-Smith. Can this come down? Yeah. I live at 16 Corey Road. I have 2 kids in the non-AEP program, 3rd and 7th grade, one of them Drake here. I'm speaking not in favor of continuing the AEAP program to make it short, but I am in favor of an honors program or whatever you want to create that can exist at all schools, because I feel like kids could have an honors math program with one teacher, but if they're not honors English, that would be easy to adjust. So I'll say that shortly, but I am going to have a few more words here. Thank you. First, I want to say 8 years ago, my son started kindergarten, my older one, Atticus, at Linden. Mr. Dolan was fantastic, but I will never forget the informational that kindergarten families got with Mr. Bransfield, where he bragged to kindergarten families who were not in the AEAP program about how many smart kids from the Linden were in the AEAP program. I have friends all over this district, plenty of smart kids who didn't want to take their kids out of their school, be it Forestdale, be it Beebe, be it Salem Wood, be it Ferryway. They don't want to transfer their kids in kindergarten to first grade for social emotional reasons. The idea that a one program exists at one school is crazy. And if you want to expand it, I think that's crazy too, because you know full well I was upset 6 years ago about the inequality of class sizes that existed back then, and I don't think it's fair right now. I know you paused the program, but Drake has what, 18, and the gifted program, because you AEAP program has 11. This is ridiculous. He does have an IEP. But I'll say what I was gonna say. Mr. Bransfield lied. There are kids who are smart all over this district, and it is not just at the Linden. And that's when I first knew that this program was problematic, when you have a principal in front of a bunch of kindergarten families lying. I spoke 6 years ago at the September 21st, 2015 Malden School Committee meeting. I asked for the class sizes to be more proportionate between the AEAP program at 19 versus the class size of Atticus right now in the 7th at 27. I look back and I only can say I'm more frustrated that the kids in his class and other kids in Linden had to experience larger class sizes at the expense of a few. Over the years, I have had conversations and been exposed to comments that kids who don't belong, which I disagree with. They probably belong, but maybe they have other issues going on, and that's just, it's sad, right? Granted, so I said that, okay. Granted, kids across the district beat out kids in the AEP program on math and ELA, like MCAS tests. I mean, you see kids, you can look at the MCAS scores. I mean, those are basic standard things that you would think anybody, to show basic proficiency or advanced proficiency. I know an MCAS isn't the end-all be-all, but if you're an advanced program, shouldn't we be having more kids in the blue than the rest of the district with this program? And it was frustrating to see Atticus score in the blue in the 3rd grade when he had large class sizes and he was still able to do it. But he's good at math and not English or whatever you decide. I heard friends in the program say their kids had been in the orange for ELA and continue to be in the program. I understand MCAS isn't the end-all of determining ability. I agree, but forgive me, the school committee have allowed this program to exist that argues some form of ability. After all, advanced is in the name of the program, to do well in terms of learning without any real distinction of what's considered belonging to this program. And I looked up DESE and what they wrote on gifted. They don't have a definition, and because they don't have a definition, it's hard to test for. I mean, that thing was a joke. They're like, okay, well, we're gonna do math scores of MCAS, so that starts in 3rd grade, because like even DESE won't test kids before 3rd grade. Sorry, I'm yelling and
Yeah, I just want to say it's 6:38, so
okay.
a couple more
Anyway,
minutes.
I've been negative long enough. Like, I'll just say this one sentence. I learned 6 years ago on that evening, in my experience, that it won't change unless you continue to let it exist. As imperfect or as wrong it is, they will argue it should exist no matter what, how long it takes, how many years will continue to pass, that uneven class sizes exist or skimming until a better program is devised. Everyone agrees on. I think every school committee members over the years and superintendents have known full well the hole you can't dig yourself out of. It was easiest to do nothing, and the most vocal pushback didn't get upset if you did nothing and left things as they were. But I have been negative, I'm sorry. I will move on. I was hurt when the program had the perception of general education classes of not raising their hands. So this large note card that Drake has, it's a kid that wrote him a nice note about him being, about the kind of student he is, and I was hoping he would read
Can
it.
I just stop you? We usually limit this to a couple minutes. You're at 5, and I just want to make sure that we're not missing anybody because we're stopping at 6:46. Do you have a closing statement? Drake? Please.
Dear Drake, you are a very funny guy because you always make me laugh, and you are very nice, smart, and funny. Whenever you do something, you will always ask great questions, and I like how you tell funny jokes. You always participate in class. That makes you a very good student.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we have 6 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dawn O'Toole. I live at 130 Adams Street in Malden. I am the mother of two students at Malden High School who both attended the BB. I am also a kindergarten paraprofessional at BB. In speaking with the program, I have to agree that there are many students across this city who unfortunately, due to where they live, have not been able to be part of an AEAP program. My son Daniel is a sophomore at Malden High who is ranked 38 out of 436. He has had honors classes as a freshman and sophomore, with the exception of Italian, which is CP, but that's because he started it in his sophomore year. His teachers at BB excelled with what they had to make sure that those children who were not able to be in an AEAP program and did the best that they could. My son Liam is ranked 194 out of 432 students and has all honors classes all 4 years except for math, because that's just not his strong suit. Due to his MCAS, he was awarded the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship because of his teachers at BB, who did not have an AEAP program. This is something that needs to be equitable across the city, and an honors program starting in middle school is great to groom these children to get up there. Also, my son Daniel was recommended to take multiple AP classes for his junior year. I just want to briefly say, there, as of the last school committee meeting, there were 6,463 students in the Malden Public Schools. There are 823 at the Linden, leaving 5,640 students in this city that we all have to think about. All students, not just at one particular school. Unfortunately, and as it was stated by another parent, parents do not want to pull children out of a school due to social emotional reasons to put them into another program and start them with new friends and starting all over again. A lot of children have had some issues, especially with COVID, and we're dealing with those now. So please, when you are voting on these things, think of all the students across the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, 6:42, 4 minutes.
Bonnie Littlejohn, Emerald Street in Malden. I have nothing prepped, but I just wanted to point out, first, I have faith in the Malden Public Schools, the educators in all the schools. I have faith that they will teach and educate the students. I would like to point out that I have nothing prepped, so I'm like a little nervous here.
No worries.
That maybe about at least 3 or 4 of the top in the junior class right now, I happen to know are from BB. So I know that kids can thrive and be challenged and not have to go through this program. They can go be in the other schools in the regular ed program. So I know that students can thrive, be challenged, and continue up when they get to the high school. And like I said, I just have faith in the teachers that they will pull it out of the students and help them. And again, look at how many students we have. Okay. And everything should be equitable in all the schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel,
right.
Rach, I see you. Can I get one online comment before I come to you? Okay. I can't see it. Sabarsi's gone. All right, Rachel, come on up. Sorry. Oh, never mind.
Go right ahead. Good evening.
Oh, Sabarsi's back.
I'm Abigail Whiteman, and I'm part of the AEAP program at the Linden STEAM. I'm in 7th grade.
I'm Shelmy Heapoli, and I'm in 7th grade at the AEAP program at Linden STEAM Academy.
I'm Connor Shop in the 7th grade in the AEAP at Linden STEAM Academy.
Great. Welcome.
I have been a part of the AEAP program at Linden since 1st grade. Over the years, I've realized how this class has helped me learn so much. I've made my closest friends through this program who have helped me when I've had trouble. I think this program is insanely helpful for the kids who need it and would be ashamed to see it go. I've loved all the teachers who have been with this program, and they've helped me learn so much and achieve all of my goals. I hope you can try to improve this program and give it another chance. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, we have just another minute.
Hi. front of her.
I had to just,
So you
it's not
just-
going to
you
take
just
long.
walked in front of someone.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Come back.
Getting my exercise, getting up and down. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll try to be quick. I know I emailed you all this comment, but I wanted to make it publicly as well. My name is Rachel Running. I'm a Linden parent of a 4th and 2nd grader, as well as a member of the Linden Site Council. I live at 51 Bellevale Street. I'm speaking in favor of eliminating the AEAP program. And at the April 27th Equity Subcommittee, I also gave comment, which I won't repeat in its entirety, but I do want to repeat the acknowledgement that this issue is a hard one, and I have a great deal of respect for all those advocating for their children for the AEAP, in the AEAP program. We are all passionate about our children's educations and invested in our schools, and we might disagree on some of the steps, but I know that we can collectively come to a solution. And I want to thank you all as well as the Equity Subcommittee. So here are the reasons, I'm going to go through them, that I think we should eliminate and not unpause and reset. I think we should not be separating children by real or perceived intelligence into separate classrooms. That model of a separate classroom for accelerated learners is really problematic. And we need integrated classrooms that benefits all children from every kind of learner. It benefits them to be with each other from the whole range. It's hard to find another Massachusetts school system that runs a gifted and accelerated program like Malden's. Districts such as Lexington and Newton and many others in Mass that have used to run so-called gifted programs have really dismantled them in recent years in the name of equity. Among cities that have programs, Brookline is one I've heard mentioned. Their programs look nothing like what we have here in Malden. Quoting from the Brookline Public Schools website, we use a, quote, we use a consulting teacher model, which means that the program's emphasis is on supporting classroom teachers in extending and enriching the curriculum in order to provide for academically and intellectually advanced students in the regular classroom. Our AEAP program, as it stands, has deep problems with equity. The admission criteria are not only unclear and over-dependent on teacher recommendations, but teachers have reported that caretakers have been able to lobby their children into the program against teacher advice. Furthermore, students from lower income households and those with IEPs are underrepresented. The program starts too early. First graders shouldn't be placed in a separate classroom with a fixed peer group for their elementary school career. I do not believe it's appropriate to label children as young as 6 years old as gifted or advanced, nor do I think it is useful for those learners or the hundreds of students in the general ed environment. Children are aware of these labels, and entering, exiting, and never qualifying for the program can affect their self-esteem, their ideas about their own intelligence and self-worth. We should be helping all children reach their potential and support their holistic learning. Almost there. The program's goal is to support faster learners, but it leaves out a huge population of students who learn quickly in one area, but not others. I'm supportive of a solution that looks at the whole learner and provides valuable enrichment to all. Honors or advanced classes or extra enrichment in certain areas open to all students are great ideas to explore. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, our teachers need fully funded classrooms to be able to teach all types of learners. They need smaller class sizes, curriculum, PD, and time to do the work. Our teachers are absolutely amazing, all of them, and capable of supporting a range of learners in one class, but we must give them all the resources to do so, including extra support staff in the buildings and classrooms and an appropriate number of students per class. Okay. The voices of parents in favor of ending this program might not be as broadly represented today as they are of current caregivers, but I want to push back against the notion that there is a huge public outcry to save this program. Largely, we're hearing from a small group of dedicated caregivers of current students, and it is their right to speak loudly, but I want to say that they do not speak for me, and I know that many families at MPS agree with me, and they would like to see the program ended and our approach reimagined. I think that we're capable, as a district, of boldly reimagining with open eyes, open ears, patience, and love. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our last speaker will come via
Subasri, and I apologize, Subasri. I accidentally hit lower hand instead of allow to talk, so I'm gonna click on you now, and you should be good to go.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Shubha Doreraj. I live at 878 Salem Street, Malden. Putting off this program for something new in future shows a lack of urgency and commitment. Our leaders are smarter than that. Let's compare this to a surgery. Our school system is having an open heart surgery. We keep the patient alive even if it has to be a machine. Fix what's wrong and cure the patient. We don't take the life out of the patient if we are not capable of fixing this. What is the guarantee this will be addressed by a new program and when? What is the guarantee it won't come with its own share of deficiencies? So let's not pause the program, instead continually improve it to a point it's equitable to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity again.
Thank you. So I guess it's only appropriate that we end public comment with Mr. Slavitt, who I know you've done a lot of work on this. So Mr. Slavitt will be Mr. Slavitt will be our last speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually here about my sidewalk. No, I'm just kidding.
Get in line. You're separate.
I think at this point, everyone has said everything they need to say. The research is out there. Everything's out there. I guess I would just say, having watched the last 6 weeks closely, I think as a district, we need to stop pretending that we're the first school district to ever have these questions. They've been addressed and solved in numerous other locations. And I'm including districts with programs that we don't have, but that over the course of this conversation have come up and then gone away as they lost usefulness to opponents of the program. So at first there was some insinuation that the equity issue is demographic. That went away. Then there was some insinuation that class sizes were different. When we looked into it and we got numbers from the teachers about how many students were in those classes, they're not different. And so I think we're at a point where our neighbors are using terms like elitist, and having grown up in Malden, at least until the Starbucks got here, that's not what I think about when I think about our town. I think the plan that we sent is a simple one. It is the gold standard for advanced learners, for accelerated learners. All we need to do in order to address the geographic, some of the parents using influence, all of those things, are first to have a policy and hold the line, which is just a leadership issue, but also to do universal assessment and identification, normed per building, which is the gold standard, so that we can refer any student that needs these services. This is not about who's smart. We don't do IQ tests. We're not talking about intelligence. It's about competency-based education. So I hope that we enroll in the UConn study. I hope that we consider unpausing for this fall. We know what we need to do. We have the time between now and fall. If we wait another month, if we leave this issue, we will not. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of everyone here, we very much appreciate your presence and for your thoughtful comments, for the most part, over the past several weeks. Whether you're for the program or you're not, this is how we get to where we want to go. So with that being said, if there be no objection from the school committee, we will now take out of order the report of the Equity and Opportunity Ad-Hoc Subcommittee. Chair hears objection, chair hears none. So let's go to Ms. Spadafora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to everybody that came out tonight and spoke, especially our youngest learners, whether they're for or against. I appreciate your advocacy, and this is just the start of a very promising future. So the Equity and Opportunity Subcommittee came here a month ago at the school committee and decided to pull back on our original vote because we heard voices loud and clear that they wanted us to take a deeper look at that. We then met last week and were provided with additional data, questions answered by our administration into the current program that exists at the Linden STEAM Academy. The recommendation of the subcommittee was to dissolve the current program. Having left that meeting, this subcommittee then continued to receive numerous emails, phone calls, for and against, and I won't say just this subcommittee, the entire committee that sits before you up here, we have all heard loud and clear. So with that being said, our administration went back to the drawing board and said, what can we do that could make this program equitable, that could keep a program in place, that could allow us to collect data on a program where data has not been collected in the past. Unfortunately, for this administration, they have stepped into something that previous administrations haven't paid attention to, haven't put much thought into it, and because of that, it has left us with not much to look at, not much to evaluate. So this central office worked tirelessly last week through the weekend to provide us with another plan. So I'd like to lay that plan out to the committee, if that's all right with the chair? Or
Yes.
should we rescind the
Yes.
original vote?
Yes, why don't we first address the Equity Subcommittee's original vote, which was to dissolve.
The motion was to dissolve the accelerated and enriched academic program.
Okay, so is there a second, just so we can properly vet that committee's report? Doesn't mean we're going to do it, but in order to dispense with it. So Mr. Weldai, second, and it's just for the purposes of discussion, so we can figure out where we go from here. So it's properly before us, and I think Ms. Spadafora has laid out the feeling since the subcommittee last met. So a yes would be to dissolve, a no would be not to dissolve. And now we'll take any questions on that first before we entertain anything else this evening. Are there any questions? Mr.
What's the yes and no mean again, please?
Yes. So if you wish to dissolve, you would vote yes. Yes. Okay? That was the committee's original recommendation, but as you heard, there's been some reconsideration of that. A no vote would be not to dissolve, okay? And then, once that's addressed, we'll go from there. But that's what's at stake. I just want to say, beyond the move to approve or not approve, I do want to let everyone here know, and who may be watching at home, that Jennifer, Ms. Spadafora and her committee, which consists of Mr. Bernard and Ms. Macklin, I think really deserve a lot of credit, because I have now been in public service for 20 years. Wow, okay. And in that time, I have always seen when someone makes up their mind, there's no going back. But I have also seen over the past several days, including Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and now tonight, a willingness to continue to try to find common ground. So I want to compliment publicly Ms. Spadafora and her committee, Mr. Bernard and Ms. Macklin, for doing that, because I have found during my time that that is uncommon, and I think you all deserve credit for doing that. So again, if there's no other questions, we'll have our clerk call the roll. To dissolve, yes. To not dissolve, no. Let me get the clerk on. Madam Clerk, please.
Is this for purposes of discussion?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what this vote's for.
No.
Well, I just outlined what the motion is. It's pretty cut and dry.
Yes, so there's not going to be any discussion?
Subsequently, there will be. I think right now, we just want to dispense with the committee's recommendation. So I think we need to first figure out is where the committee stands on just not simply, but dissolving the program. Or not dissolving it, then we can determine how we proceed forward.
Okay.
So there'll be time, in other words, for further discussion. Clerk will call the roll.
This is for the whole committee.
This is for the whole committee on whether or not we support the subcommittee's recommendation. A yes vote is to dissolve, a no vote is not to dissolve. And Madam Chair, Clerk, if you would just give me a second, I want to turn, let me get these mics on. Ms. Spadafora, let's see, yours is on. Ms. Spadafora, yours is on. Mr. Gray. Mr. Bernard, can you just click your mics? I just want to have you on. So, Mr. Gray, click yours. I think they're on, right, Mr. Weldai? Is yours on, Ms. Macklin?
Yes. He rocked when unmuting himself.
Is yours on, Ms. Rose Seibert?
Yes, Dawn's isn't. Jennifer Spadafora. Click Jennifer. Dawn.
Dawn, don't touch it.
Yeah, stop touching.
Right now.
Now click. Now click Jen. There we go. Oh, yeah, it was there in the, all right. Dawn, press it again. Okay, now there it presses. All right, try pressing, Dawn.
All right, everybody, so we're just going to have to speak loudly. Another thing for Mr. Weldai to work on after this meeting's over. All right, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Drummey?
No.
Mr. McCarthy?
No.
Ms. Spadafora?
No.
Ms. Macklin? No. Mr. Weldai?
No.
Mr. Gray? Mr. Bernard?
No.
Ms. Rose Seibert?
No.
Mayor Christensen?
No. So that carries unanimously. Now let's go back to our chair to figure out where we go from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for taking that up. So as I said, over the past 4 days, central office, our administration has worked to come up with a plan that would allow us to continue with the AEAP program in some limitations, allow us to collect data that we haven't had in the past, allow us to address some issues with the program, with the framework, with the admissions, the testing, as well as the inequities of not having applications translated, having seats open for students in all schools to attend. So if I may,
please
lay out this plan. So the move would be to pause enrollment for school year 22-23 for grades 1 through 3. We would continue with existing cohorts in grades 4 through 8 and make any open seats in grades 4 through 8 available to students district-wide. Those open seats would be open to the Beebe, Ferryway, Forestdale, and Salem Wood only. No third graders, as we need to gather more information in the program that needs structure, admissions, and data validity. So again, the pause, because we have paused for 1 and 2 now, we would pause 3, allowing us to collect data without having to address entrance at the moment. Again, current cohorts would remain in the program, grandfathered in. All open seats would be allotted to the other 4 schools in the district to be filled. Those seats would be filled by the Welcome Center. It would not be in the hands of Linden to decide who enters into the program. All applications would be translated. There would be no preferential seating for siblings. So if a student was to get into the program at Linden, we cannot open up a seat for siblings at that school. Students' historical attendance will be part of this entry criteria, and admission rankings will be determined by the district. Again, it will not be determined by Linden principals or teachers. It will be held by a coordinator through the district. In the assessments, we will be using IXL for math, iReady for literacy, and we'll be using writing samples. We'll also add in science and social studies assessments, which are currently not used. We will not rely on 2022 MCAS data due to COVID and the scores that were coming in. We'll assess current students in the program as well to gather a baseline data of where the current students stand. We will assess all incoming students, and students will participate in all DESE and district and school assessments. The core curriculum will be based ELA, grades 4 through 8 will use Amplify, CKLA. Math grades 4 and 5 will use Eureka. Math grades 6 through 8 will use Open Up. And science grades 3 through 8 will be determined by the district STEM directors, as well as history grades 3 through 8 will be determined by the district history director. Professional development will be directors, principals, and coaches will be continue participating in our current Unbound Ed professional development. Teachers will continue to join the Unbound Ed training. And the Yukon virtual conference will be utilized for directors and principals. Where's my, I'm sorry, I lost my place in notes. Which will be a virtual professional development learning for teachers through Yukon. Program support, we will have a trilingual program coordinator. If classes do increase in size at Linden, we will add teachers in grades 4 through 8. Our focus will be on mental, social, emotional support. And then our long-term goal, we'd like to create an ad hoc subcommittee by our superintendent that would include 2 central office staff, 2 parent representatives of the district, a school-based administrator from one of the K through 8 schools, not necessarily from the program, and a teacher from one of the 5 K through 8 schools. And this committee will review financial implications of the program policy, entry and exit criteria, program success and assessment, and future location of the program. And the current investment, the only ask would be for the hiring of a coordinator.
All right, everybody. There you have it. So any questions of the committee? Let's start with Mr. Bernard.
Just a couple things. One, I just wanted to go in and get an idea, because the one school that I didn't hear was Salem Wood. Was there a particular reason for not including them in that, or did I miss that?
I'm sorry, if you could just repeat that, why we're not including students
From
Linden
into Linden, or was it Salem Wood?
Into Linden. I think it was just inadvertently left off, right?
I'm sorry.
When you're listing the
Salem Wood?
schools.
Oh, did I not say Salem Wood? Oh, my apologies.
Okay, then I missed, yeah.
No.
That's fine. It's been a long day for everybody.
It has been a very long day.
Yeah. The other question that I have is that would we want to go and have a, not, you know, if we, doing the numbers roughly, we want to keep it at an odd number of subcommittee members. I'd like to go and just suggest that maybe we think about going and having a liaison from the school committee be there to kind of be the interface between there and be a non-voting member, but, and that can be something that we go and determine at a later date, but that's one thing that I'd go and I'd suggest on this too.
Yep. Yep, we agree. I mean, we talked about that, right, Ms. Spadafora?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you kind of hit it on the head with the number of committee members. If it has to come to voting, we always want an odd number, so there's never that tie. But I absolutely think having non-voting members on the committee, our Director of Finance will obviously want to look into the finances, and having somebody from the school committee be a liaison to maybe report back would be a great idea. So I think we could include that.
And Ms. Spadafora, based on what Mr. Bernard said, would it be the intent that next month we would come in with this final ad hoc subcommittee on how it's constructed and vote on that then?
I think I'd like to make a motion for us to create the ad hoc committee and then have the superintendent report back in with those chosen at our next, depending on where the votes go tonight.
Does that make sense, Mr. Bernard? Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Bernard. Let's hear from some other members on what's been presented. Any questions? Let's go to Ms. Macklin.
It's working still. Oh, it is? Okay. So I just had a question about the classroom sizes, and I knew that at Linden, for this current school year, that we've kind of filled the seats with students from other classrooms. How are we going to assess those students? Will they return to regular ed classes? How are we going to handle that piece?
And I may turn this one over to the superintendent, not to put you on the spot. In regards to the classrooms, we are going to assess students before the start of the school year, if I'm correct in that?
That is correct. So one thing is to create a waiting list, a real waiting list. So we will be assessing students, grandfather, the ones that are near, but the ones that will be assessing this summer when they apply, we are going to create a pipeline. So if seats become available, those students who are in the waiting list will be able to go into the school. So it will become a district program. So trying to make sure that the seat would be always at, hopefully, full capacity with students that fulfill the criteria to be in the program.
Okay.
Is that it, Ms. Macklin?
Yes, that's all I
Okay.
have for now.
We can come back. Let's go to Mr. Gray, and then we'll go to Ms. Rose Syberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to come at this from a slightly different angle. It is my opinion that this whole process be tabled until proper order is applied here. This seems to be being taken out of order, and I have a lot of serious questions. For the background, in November 2019, the Academic Subcommittee voted to create a task force to analyze how to improve and expand the AEAP program. That was in November 2019. In December 2019, this full school committee voted unanimously to approve that task force to study how to improve and advance the AEAP program. That vote of the school committee was never rescinded. It was never overridden. May 2020, Mr. Weldai, during the middle of the pandemic, brought up a resolution to pause the AEAP program and review it. During that time, no review ever took place that anybody can find. March 22, 2021, the Equity Subcommittee met again. there are no meeting minutes of that meeting. Apparently, school committee member Beardsley had handed off the AEAP issue to Mr. Weldai in 2020 during the transition from one electoral group to the other. The school committee never approved that. The school committee never approved the handoff of the AEAP program from the academic subcommittee to the equity subcommittee. Mr. Weldai apparently took that over as a favor during the transition from Ms. Beardsley. April 5th, 2021. Well, let me go back to May 20. May 20, 2021, we voted unanimously to pause. I thought I'd voted not to pause, but apparently we were all scared and concerned during the start of the pandemic, and Mr. Weldai made a convincing argument to pause in May 2020. But in March 22, 2021, there was another request to pause by Mr. Weldai with a similar argument. Everybody agreed to the pause except me in March 22, 2021. I felt that we were all coming back to school and there was no need to, and I couldn't understand why the equity subcommittee was bringing this up again. So now, it's 2022, we're back at this again, and I'm still trying to understand why the equity subcommittee still has control of something that should be under the academic subcommittee. Okay, we're going into a lot of territory that was never approved by the school committee for the equity subcommittee to take control of. We've gone far beyond what it sounds like equity issues into academic issues. The school committee, in my opinion, has never approved of the equity subcommittee to have the authority and responsibility to eliminate a course of study within the school department. We've never done it. If we allow this to stand, any subcommittee, facilities, technology, policy, could self-appoint themselves the power to eliminate a course of study within the school department. Okay, we have no working definition of the roles, responsibility, and authority of the equity subcommittee. Just what does it do? Does it have this ability and this power? We're still talking about this as if it were a responsibility of the equity subcommittee. But we never voted for that. That's never happened. If we're going to give the equity subcommittee this role and responsibility, we need to determine that first before we do anything that's being proposed tonight. Otherwise, we're completely out of order. I don't see how the rules apply to something when, does anybody up here really know, especially the new members, what is your responsibility on the equity subcommittee? You know, and as far as how things are going, may I call someone up?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Respectfully, Mr. Gray, I would just ask that we, as a committee.
That's all I have. Where did this authority come from? There's no record of it. In my opinion, this should go back to an academic subcommittee to deal with this. That's where it was. We still have a standing resolution that was approved by the school committee that we're not following up on.
You, without a doubt, have that right, for sure, as do all of us. And that's whether you're on the academic subcommittee, whether you're on the equity subcommittee, whether you're on budget, whether you're on any committee. As a member, you have the ability to make motions and to offer resolutions on how you think we should proceed forward. From my point of view as chair, I would just say that what you outlined is there. And we finally, I believe, based on what I've seen gone on over the past several days and weeks, we have, I believe, an opportunity to go this way. So regardless of what's happened in the past, we have to look toward the future. And I think, based on what's been outlined by Ms. Spadafora, we have something. But let's see what the rest of the members say. But I wouldn't get caught up in what's happened in the past. But again, it's your right. If that's something that is near and dear, then you vote accordingly.
Just a quick question. Is this coming out of the Equity Subcommittee, or is it coming out of Ms. Spadafora?
Equity Subcommittee, but regardless, even if it wasn't that, she has the right to make a motion. So we address the subcommittee's recommendation. So now, in essence, it's open season. So we don't have anything until what Ms. Spadafora just motioned. So I think, it was seconded, it's before us. So I think we addressed that. And I respect what you're saying, and if that's what you truly feel, then you vote accordingly. But I don't think it's out of order for a member or a subcommittee to make a motion to move the committee in a certain way. I mean, that's why we're here, I think, in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go to Ms. Rose Zyberg, and we can come back to you, Mr. Gray, and then over to Mr. Weldai. So let's hear from Ms. Rose Zyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to check first and see I'm okay with this. Was something earlier, if Mr. Weldai's comment pertains to this discussion, I'm fine with going to Mr. Weldai.
Do you want her to continue, Mr. Weldai?
Are you responding to?
No, that's
You
fine.
wanted to know if what you were going to say pertains to Mr. Gray's.
Go ahead.
All right, so everyone, Ms. Rose Zyberg was next, but she's going to yield to Mr. Weldai, who wanted to just clarify, I think, something that Mr. Gray said.
I appreciate that, Ms. Rose Zyberg, particularly so it's not the conversation is not disjointed. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now understand why Mr. Gray mentioned before the meeting you might see your name thrown around a little bit. So I want to correct a couple things, because I respect you, Mr. Gray, but a lot of what you said was not actually factual or accurate. So I want to make sure it's very clear to the people at home exactly what transpired and what the role and responsibilities of a school committee and a superintendent are. In December of 2019, when my predecessor, Tara Beardsley, who was a phenomenal school committee member, left the committee, she was head of the academic subcommittee. Subcommittees are created by the chair at the beginning and end of each term. They do not just happen. We all, as members, get listings of what the subcommittees are. The academic subcommittee has not existed since December of 2019. So I don't know why we'd be referencing where it is in the academic subcommittee. The academic subcommittee was also created 2 years earlier. So it's not something that has lived on for years and years. It was a brief ad hoc committee that was created at the request of Ms. Beardsley to do some good work. And then when the new term began, the chair, as his prerogative, created new committees. Nothing was handed over. There was no pass-off from Ms. Beardsley to me. In fact, I don't even remember that being assigned to the equity committee, but I took it because we all do our jobs and our due diligence, and when the superintendent asks us to take on a task, we take on the task. So I want to start there. In January of 2020, Dr. Chase, our former assistant superintendent, commenced an equity audit of the entire district. The equity audit was not solely about the Linden AEAP program. It was about everything from time on learning, how many minutes are happening in math and ELA and science and K through 4 and 5 through 8 and 9 through 12, with the expressed intent, as I'm sure anyone in this room would identify, of picking out some of the things that make our 5 K through 8 so inequitable and finding ways to bring us together. Necessary. Whether or not you agree with the idea of equity, the idea that any kid should be able to go to any one of our 5 K to 8 schools and get a similar and strong experience is something we all should stand behind. As you might remember, in mid-March, the world changed just a bit, and some of our work was put on pause. The superintendent at the time asked the committee to pause enrollment for AEAP. I did not ask the committee. I did not make a forceful argument. The argument was articulated by John O'Terry and Kelly Chase. Now, As Mr. Gray also knows, the superintendent does not put things on the agenda. We all sponsor them. You'll look at the bottom of today's agenda, it says, school choice vote, Mr. Weldai. Did I write the school choice vote? Did I write the school choice law? Absolutely not. But when the superintendent asks us to sponsor something on the docket, there's really no reason that we would say, no, we're not going to talk about that as a committee. So unfortunately, maybe you don't remember the meeting or the discussion that was had, but I can safely say that I did not either time make an argument for or against the Linden AEAP program. I did sponsor an item on the agenda, which I did tonight as well, and I happily would do when a superintendent asks us to. So if our superintendent at the time had a direction that he was looking for our system to go in, we as a committee seemed to agree with him. He was the educational leader that we hired to make recommendations of where our district should go. We followed it. We can be upset that we followed it, but the one thing that I'm certainly not going to do is put blame on any single person up here who was there at the time for taking a vote, any vote that they took, because in theory, they voted their conscience. Now, my express intent, and you might not know this because you did not come to any of the equity subcommittee meetings early in 2020, and I made it very clear to my colleagues at the time, was that we were interested in duplicating what was going on at the Linden. There might be some folks in the audience tonight, particularly our educators, who might remember that, but the hope was that we were looking to duplicate what was happening because we thought and saw a strong program that was serving students. And the number one issue was that kids from across our district did not want, and I very much agree with one of our speakers in terms of, we, as a parent, why we would want to pull our kid out of the environment they're in, let's say in 3rd grade or 4th grade, to put them in a different building, doesn't make sense to me. And that was the number one barrier, was that this program is in one building. People don't want to necessarily move their kid mid-K through 8 career. We also made the decision a number of years ago to stop transportation, so it was an issue for a lot of folks, particularly living on the West End. So the express intent of the Equity Committee in early 2020 was to look at and to duplicate. So I personally don't appreciate the insinuation of something otherwise, but I think if you had been there and at those meetings and part of those conversations, I think you would have known that, as folks who were there do. I will say I give a significant amount of credit. We didn't get to finish our equity audit work. We really didn't. And I will say I have really appreciated the significant amount of public feedback we've gotten around this issue, because it's kind of nice to be able to interact with people around, I think, pedagogical things, particularly around education. And I've tried to respond to most of the emails that we've gotten. And as the chair sort of mentioned at the beginning, most have been really respectful. There have been a couple, you had nothing better to do during the pandemic than, work on this, and that was surprising. But the work that Ms. Spadafora, Mayor Christensen, Superintendent Noriega, Assistant Superintendent Pena have done in sort of looking at the issue is what I think we didn't even get to scratch the surface 2 years ago. And I've learned more in the past 2 months than I have known in years. And I will openly very much say that I had a bias towards a lot of what was going on because I had a mother who taught at the Linden, and I know the amazing work that goes on at the Linden. I am very proud and blessed to say that I know all 4 of the educators who are here tonight and consider them to be phenomenal, and I'm very lucky to consider some of them to be friends. I will say I did not know, and I think this is something that we have to think about moving forward, the extent to which there needs to be some repair with the community at large at the Linden around this program, right? I don't think any of us knew the extent to which maybe our other colleagues in the building do not support what's going on in this program. I don't think we knew the extent to which they felt demoralized by sort of the parent push. I don't think that we knew the extent to which the enrollment process became much less of an actual criteria and much more of a point and a wink and a nod. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I respect and appreciate, I think, the willingness to get in a room which, you know, the chair is humble. He was very much a part of those conversations all weekend long to come up with some kind of a plan that I think actually satisfies both the need to be able to push and enrich the students who need that push, and also build and expand on what the superintendent, I think, is looking at in terms of an honors program or enrichment and acceleration for all students across the district, which I think you can do simultaneously. But I give you a lot of credit for making that happen and working with the community to do that. But what I will say, and the reason I really wanted to raise this was that, you know, we've thrown a lot at our superintendent over the past, we've only been here 6-7 months. It feels like 2-3 years, but we've thrown a lot at her, and this was not something I think she expected. And I will take some ownership here on the fact that, you know, we allowed our prior administration to drop that ball. And could I have pushed harder? Absolutely. Were we in the middle of a global pandemic? Yes. Could I have pushed harder? Absolutely. But I'm not going to sort of let this notion be out there that there was some nefarious undercurrent to eliminate a program that actually helps students, that pushes teachers, that gets our community involved. I think what's very clear, though, now, regardless of how this vote goes, is that there is definitely some community building to be done within the Linden school community, both within the staff, with the parents, and I tell you, I don't envy, but I have a significant amount of respect for your phenomenal principal, because, you know, there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and I know that Ray is the right person to do that. So, with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Weldai. Back to Ms. Rose Zyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have questions about, Ms. Spadafora, the program as you were discussing. In part, I am interested in what the expected cost, if there's that, and also the scope of potentially reforming the program. We know, and I must say I was really extremely touched and moved, and it carried a lot of weight with me to read the comments that teachers provided when they met with the assistant superintendent about their concerns for the program. I give you a lot of credit for sustaining a program with what appears to have been very little support at times. So I am interested, though, in how are we going to go about fixing these things to make sure that they are ready? Will they be ready for September? Are we going to have very well publicized? I know that communication has been an issue. I heard from parents who are currently in the Linden school, and they had no idea that there was a program. That's one problem. I've been doing research on this, as some folks know. I did go to some of the subcommittee meetings, and I also went to the presentation, which was extremely informative about, that the community group put together about programs. I have dug a little deeper and started doing my own sort of research into things to read about what best practices, current best practices are looking like for kids who need accelerated and advanced lessons. There is actually, somebody had mentioned earlier how DESE does not define gifted, which is true. They did, however, there's a report that had come out, and they did form an advisory council. I have actually tried to reach out to them. They have met. There's nothing since January that's been posted for their minutes, but I've been looking into that. So I do take this seriously, what's going on with this program. And that's one of the things that I'm want to know, how are we going to go about making sure that what we are going to reinstate or reform. I do believe that it needs to be an overhaul, and a lot, again, goes to a lot of the teacher comments that came in. Research that I've looked at that looks at, and I'm looking at this study that I had pulled up that says, grouping students as a class by ability for all subjects doesn't improve achievement. That's based on research. It's based on evidence. So I want to make sure that what we put in place actually does benefit our students. And also in ways to make it. One of the questions I've always had about the program, I've always wondered how we can say, oh, there's one spot open in grade 4. And I think, okay, so I'm a parent who's moving into the city, and my child meets every criteria. There's one spot, or there's no spots. Well, are we going to reinstate that? I have a really hard time with that. I've never understood that. My own children did go to Linden. They did not get into the program. And I do want to say, I know it had come up, just want to correct, someone had said that no, that students with IEPs were never not allowed in the program. My son was, I was told at a meeting that my son did not qualify for the program because he was on an IEP for dyslexia. It did happen. I'm glad to know that we all know that that is no longer a practice that can stay in place. We have to be able to, I do believe that we need to reach all of our children. When I ran, I said, it's for every kid. We do have children who are accelerated. They need a program. Is it this program? I do believe that we do need to fix the things that are a problem before moving forward. And I'm curious how, are we ready to do that? Is there the money to do that? How do we, answer the question of, to say, there's no spot for you. Well, wait a minute. If we're setting a criteria and more kids than spots qualify, then what? If there's 30 kids who qualify, and you say, well, there's 25 spots. Where are we with that? And that's why I've looked at other types of grouping. There's grouping students by different ways. There's having kids, there's lots of different approaches. And are we that open? Or are we still looking at more sticking with how it's been with one classroom of kids moving forward? Or is sort of everything on the table right now that we can really revamp it? And I also was interested in the interplay with the proposed honors program. Would this be still in play if we create an honors program that actually is across the entire city and actually allows for more access from many different points? Where are we with that?
Thank you, Ms. Seiberg. And I hope I can answer all of these to the best of my ability. I would say, so as you've seen, Dr. Noriega Murphy has been talking about new curriculum that we're using ESSER funds to bring in that would have honors level learning in the classroom. What this would do in keeping the program at a pause would allow us to look at this program's data and compare it to what Dr. Noriega Murphy is planning to do. That will show us either this program is doing something or we're already doing it in the classroom. We don't need this program. But we can't do anything without data first for comparison. I'd say, to your question on seating, open seats, unless we had this in every single school, there's always going to be a time in which there may not be an open seat. To be quite frank, we don't have the ability to put it in every single school in the moment, or else we would. I would be the first proponent. But what, again, Dr. Noriega Murphy is working towards is creating this in the classroom. So by unpausing this, again, we're going to look at the data, and if it's working, great. How do we push AEAP to be maybe more centrally located, more seats open? But again, we go back to, we lack data on how this program, and realistically what we have learned over the past few months, that this is a program in name and really not much more. What we're putting forth with assessments, translated applications, and realistically, the vote tonight really determines how quickly we get this rolling. And this is why we wanted it on as soon as possible, because if we're gonna go with this, we wanna make sure applications are getting out to every student in every single school that we're gonna open it up to make sure people know that this program exists. Financial costs, minimal. I did misspeak earlier looking at, I have two sets of notes in front of me. So the coordinator position is something that's already, the person's already within the school system. They would go for training. In that training, actually, we've already, the Unbound Ed, we've already are utilizing, correct? The Yukon training is very minimal. I can't give you a dollar amount, but if I can speak freely, I believe it's going to be less than $5,000. So the Yukon is a 2-day virtual conference. Yep. So minimal cost. Really what we're looking for is to establish some policy and procedure around a program that has lacked it for pretty much when it came to the district through the grants for 3 years, we had a really hearty program. And after that, there was no additional training to keep up with the curriculum. There was nothing. So essentially, I can say for 18 years, this program has slowly fallen apart. So this would allow us to see, is it in desperate need of repair? Is it not worth repairing? Do we build it up into something bigger? But it's giving us an opportunity to look into it further before just dismantling a program. And from the vice chair, I agree about the inequities. I'm a parent that can't get to the other side of Malden to have my student in. So I really would like to see it moved, somehow pushed out. I'm really confident in the superintendent's curriculum that she has been, I've sat at her table in her office and gone through, and I really feel like our superintendent is moving this district forward right now. And it makes me feel better knowing that I probably couldn't make it transportation-wise to Linden, but that is going to be offered in my child's classroom. So with that being said, I don't know if I hit all your questions. Please.
Okay, and just if I might, Ms. Rose Zyberg, we tend to forget in this crazy world we live in that this is about compromise. That word has been lost at times. And I think what Ms. Macklin, Ms. Spadafora, and Mr. Bernard have been able to do is find common ground here. And it's what makes me want to support this evening, because it addresses what many of the people here in this room have been articulating over the past several months, meaning that it's been frozen. We really shouldn't be penalized for that, meaning that the program shouldn't just be dissolved. So they have found a way forward to continue it. At the same time, they've also, I think, found a way to begin addressing some of the issues that even the proponents have admitted do exist around communication of it, the translation of it, prohibiting seats taken up by siblings, et cetera, the list of things that we've seen. So I would view this as a bridge. So we're going to experiment and begin to address some of these issues this year. Meanwhile, while that's happening, we will also have this committee together that's not just going to get together toward the end when the report's due, but actually have a schedule of meeting every couple weeks between now and when I think we would all want this information back in January in order to figure out budgetarily how it works going into fiscal year 2024. And that committee will comprise of a number of stakeholders. Now, everybody in this room should be made aware that, at that point, we could be looking at sort of doing something across the district. We could enhance what's happening at the STEAM Academy. We could move the program and centralize it, or we could just simply strengthen not needing that because we're going to go in a different direction throughout all of our classrooms. That's what the subcommittee will determine for the long haul. So I think this has, all of the elements that we would want in order to take this next step. I think that's how I would view it. That's how I'm viewing it, is, there's enough in there that I think everybody that's been part of this discussion can hold their head high when they leave here this evening. So it's not exact, it's not perfect, nothing ever is, but I think there's enough in there for the proponents and the opponents to agree that this is worth trying. So I'm going to go, did you want to say something? Because I see Mr. Gray's light is lit, and then we got to get back to Mr. Weldai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, I agree that, I mean, when I came in and after talking to a lot of you, as some of you know, I will talk for hours with you on the phone. This is actually the direction I had hoped to see things going in. I did not believe in shutting down the program, but I do think that it needs to be, a hard look has to be given to it. And I do actually really like the idea of the ad hoc subcommittee taking that hard look, which could end up being a significant difference to how the program is now.
Right.
And could hopefully address a lot of the issues that, you know, they're not going to magically go away overnight. And as everyone here probably knows from looking into this, this is not unique to Malden. There's not a definitive answer of this is how we do it, which is why we all struggle with it, figuring out what's the best fit for our city. And so I hope that that's what the ad hoc subcommittee will be able to come up with.
Agreed.
So thank you.
Okay, let's see. We're now going to go over to Mr. Gray. And everybody, if we can, let's stay focused on the plan at hand. So, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to apologize if there were some misconceptions about what I'd said earlier. I actually didn't say or imply that the academic subcommittee was persistent. What I did say was the full school committee voted unanimously to create a task force in December 2019, and that got dropped between the cracks. What you seem to be promoting tonight is basically something similar to that task force. I'm not sure exactly how the process works, but if the school committee voted unanimously to approve a task force to look into improving and advancing the AEAP program in 2019, does that vote get dropped across electoral cycles?
We will soon find out.
Okay. Also, the other thing that seemed to get misperceived was in May 2020, I did also vote for the pause. According to the records, it was a unanimous vote. I didn't remember that at the time, but I did vote for the pause.
Mm-hmm.
We were all scared, we were concerned during the pandemic. We didn't know what was going on. So I did not oppose that first year. But the second year in 2021, I did oppose extending the pause again. That's
Okay.
all.
Mr. Gray, I'm just curious, what's your thoughts on the plan itself?
I'm, like a lot of parents here, let me put it this way. I grew up like this. I went to exam schools. I didn't appreciate it as a child. Not until I was an adult and I had children of my own did I appreciate this kind of program.
Okay.
When I had my first daughter, my wife, unbeknownst to me, enrolled her in the lottery for the charter school. You know, and I just said, whatever. She decided to keep looking. When she first found the program at the Linden school, she mentioned it to me. I looked up from whatever I was doing, and I said, do it. And she was like, huh? All of a sudden, she got some life out of me. And she said, why? I said, I'm familiar with public schools. I understand the system, and I understand exam schools.
Mm-hmm.
And we never looked back. So I unabashedly sympathize with these parents and these children.
Okay.
I'm not neutral, let's put it that way,
Okay.
and I admit it. As far as this program going forward, I have concerns. Because I put my 3 children through this program, and everything that's a concern about how the program works, I experienced. The Byzantine process, the no rules, constantly calling, knocking on doors. My wife and I did all that, mostly my wife. And we essentially barged our way into the AEAP program.
So
We needed it. Our children needed it, but there wasn't any specific way to prove that. But if we are going to hold parents accountable for advocating, going above and beyond, and advocating for their children as some sort of negative, that was me. Okay, that's why I have the stance I have, because we're describing what I did. And I'm gonna stand with them. I have concerns about this. The system was flaky for grades 1 through 3, because they're so young. But the connections and the friendships and the competition those children evolved into, even at grades 1 through 3, carried all the way through grades 4 through 8.
Yep.
It mattered. You know, even though some people may think it's a negative, for these kids, it mattered.
Yep.
And that's just where I'm coming from.
Well, thing you can feel good about is part of this proposal is that Central will be leading this effort. So,
We've been advocating for that for
Yep.
15 years. My wife has been asking exactly for something like this, and nothing ever got done.
Well-
For 15 years, I've been asking, spread this to all the schools.
well, here you go, all good things to those who wait.
I'm sorry, I'm so passionate.
No, it's all good. We
but
know that.
I've been asking for this, and I'm just concerned that we're gonna get something, wheels are gonna spin.
Yep.
And my biggest concern is that gaping hole, grades 1 through 3.
Understood.
Other than that, so far, it sounds okay.
Okay.
But I don't want another pause.
Understood. All right, thank you, Mr. Gray. We're going to go with Mr. Weldai, and then we're going to move forward with a vote if there's no objection from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just very briefly, don't tell the other half of city government, but I think, pride ourselves on being the half that can vigorously disagree and then still walk out and be cohesive and friends. And I appreciate you saying what you said, Joe. I also probably didn't offer you the grace and space that I so eloquently remind others to use. But you're right, this has become a very polarizing and emotional issue. I agree with you, and I think for the first time in a long time, I feel confident in knowing that this will actually get taken on by our central office administration. And I do really want to give some credit to Dr. Chase, who tried to start this work and then, didn't for obvious reasons. But I have confidence in knowing that this group will actually come up with the results that I think is something that we can all get behind. What's the compromise piece is that everyone leaves unhappy, but there's something good about it in there for everybody. The only thing that I would mention, just for my colleagues' sake, and if it's okay with Ms. Spadafora, I think in adopting this plan, which I'm comfortable with, and I appreciate the work being done. I'm excited about data. It's the first time ever we've been asking for data for a very long time about our current cohorts. But the one thing I would ask is maybe we remove the staffing portion of it from voting on the plan, just particularly because I know, from the budget perspective, I don't feel comfortable. I know the coordinator is in district already, but I want to make sure, the professional development piece, we know we can absorb in our ESSER 3, and we know that we'll be able to do the UConn piece, we'll be able to do the Unbound Ed piece, but particularly as we're still developing the budget, I don't necessarily want anything to be voted on tonight that has a budgetary implication without being able to run it through budget. So if possible, I'd love to say, can we vote on the plan and then pull out the staffing piece as the exception?
Chair hear objection? Chair has none.
Thank you,
So
Mr. Chairman.
I think we can remove that, as we're still discussing it. I don't think, unless any member objects to actually voting by roll call to remove that piece. Any objection? Chair has none. So, Ms. Spadafora, do you wish to one more time? Ms. Rose Iberg, and then we want to get to a vote, okay? Because we have a long docket ahead of us.
Very quick question. I'm curious if can you review again who would actually be going to the UConn training? I'm curious if there are any potentially teachers currently in the program who could also benefit from attending that if the cost is not prohibitive.
We'll find that out, right? Ms.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it working right?
Yeah.
We will open it for some teachers and also administrators and also central, because if it's going to be a district-wide program, it has to be more people. So the same thing with Unbound. We are going to have principals, some teachers, so we want to make sure it's a part of the arc of learning. So it's not just an isolated thing, it's actually attached to the big picture, which is excellence of education for all.
And that was, Ms. Syberg, that was one of the key in like discussions and reviewing it, was to make sure that if this program is going to go forward and really work district-wide, that we have to have everybody a part of it, and that includes the PD. So teachers from every school, coaches, principals, just to, you know, if we're going to be equitable in a program, there has to be people from every corner of the district.
What's up, Ms. Rosenberg? All right, Ms. Spadafora, do you want to just, again, generally speaking, cover the parameters of it?
Sure. So, without making it a formal
Right.
motion. So, the program in itself would be a pause in enrollment for school year 22-23, which means no cohorts in grades 1 through 3. We'll continue with existing cohorts in grades 4 through 8 and make any open seats in grades 4 through 8 available to students district-wide. Those seats would be open to students in Beebe, Ferryway, Forestdale, and Salemwood. This would include a translation of all applications. Open seats will be determined by the Welcome Center, not Linden. There'll be no preferential seating for siblings for those that enter in, not in the program, nor will there be preferential seating to bring a sibling into Linden. Students' historical attendance will be part of the entry criteria. Admission assessment rankings will be determined by the district. We'll utilize current tools we already have for assessments, including IXL, iReady, writing samples. We'll also add in science and social studies assessments, which have not been utilized. We will not utilize 2022 MCAS data due to reliability of those scores from COVID. We will assess current students in the program so we can gather baseline data. We'll assess all incoming applicants. Oh, I just lost my place. My computer doesn't want to work. Students will participate in all DESE district and school assessments. Core curriculum will include the use of Amplify, CKLA, Eureka, Open Up, and our science and history curriculum will be determined by their respective directors. We discussed the professional development that will be offered district-wide to directors, principals, coaches, teachers, and that includes Unbound Ed, which we're currently using, and the UConn Virtual Conference. And the addition of an ad hoc committee that will look at budget analysis, program cost and sustainability, program policy, entry-exit criteria, program success, location of the program, and data monitoring of the program.
Okay, there you have it. So are there any questions? Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick one. If the main intent is to gather data in the next year, why aren't we enrolling grades 1 through 3? I'm not sure that's been made clear.
Sure.
We wouldn't have data for those kids, specifically first graders. We wouldn't have any MCAS scores for anybody below third grade. And I know that that's part of the reasoning. I'm sure our superintendent could give more, but also in numerous documents that DESE has provided, they haven't seen the benefit of this happening for first and second graders. We chose not to include third grade on that because that would be opening up an entire classroom while we work on a program that we would have to really feel good about putting kids into a program that has no establishment. So,
Okay, Mr.
but
Gray?
I don't know if the superintendent wants to add anything to that.
No. Mr. Gray?
I'd just like to say that I truly feel sad for our third graders who did benefit by their own testimony. They've been in since grade 1, and it is working for them. Regardless of what the official data says, somehow our Malden teachers are making this work, so first through third grade. And I really appreciate what we had 2 third graders come up here and tell us how wonderful it was. I'm sorry, but something's being done right. We have talented teachers. I'm not agreeing with whatever this DESE data is. That's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Gray, if I may, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please,
But
Ms.
those 2 wonderful third graders will be going into 4th grade, and they'll be part of the program.
All right, very good. So, thank you, Ms. Spadafora. The motion was made, right? It was Ms. Spadafora. Was it seconded? So, that's a motion, Ms. Spadafora. No, I think you've done it. Ms. Macklin, you're seconding it? Yep. Seconded by Ms. Macklin. Any final questions? If not, let's have our clerk call the roll.
The motion will be everything that Ms. Spadafora outlined earlier.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
No.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray? No. Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Zeiberg?
Yes.
Mayor Christensen?
Yes, so that carries 7-2. Any other questions? Hearing none. School committee will be in a brief recess. Oh, yeah. School committee will be back in order. Okay. All right, everybody. Yeah. Who? I think he's in this, he might be gone, I'm not sure. Yeah, he might have slid out. Smart, wasn't he? Oh, okay, I don't know. All right, the school committee is back. And Superintendent, if I may, on behalf of the members, if at some point central administration could offer a webinar on the next steps, the particulars of what the school committee just did, that would be helpful to us. That seemed to be some of the questions during the intermission was, you know, what are the assessments exactly? When will they be, et cetera. So if at some point you know, the central administration could organize a webinar to answer those questions, that would be great between now and our next meeting in June, okay? And in the meantime, we should get to the committee on paper what we just did, you know, and I can help with that offline. All right, so everybody, if you go to your agenda, we're now back to the regular portion of it. So let's hear from our superintendent on what's happening across the district.
First of all, I want to say thank you to all the parents and students who came here. It's always good to hear the voices. And at the end of the day, we are here because of the children. That's the center of our heart. This is the center of our student, our work. And I want to start with also saying, if I can have the other slide, please. Thank you. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week. So I want to thank all of you who are home, who are here. We know that the magic happens in the classroom. No matter what curriculum, what we work on, at the end of the day, is building relationships and loving and caring about our students. So congratulations to all our teachers, all our educators, and yes, principals, assistant principals, and the staff members. You make the magic happen at school. On that note, we are going to move to the agenda. And I'm going to go with the district enrollment. So we can see that our numbers have not changed that much. We still at 6,482 students. We have the attendance that was captured on 4/29. Our attendance has a little bit of a dip right now of 89.97, which is 90%. We want to see it 100%, but I know now it's challenging, especially with some of our COVID numbers going up. So next slide is actually our COVID numbers. So on March 28th, our numbers were 15 students. 15 cases. This last week was 54. So we are seeing a slight increase in our numbers. So I please highly, highly recommend adults and students or anybody that comes into the building to wash their hands. And if you have a cold or something, stay home. And if you're coughing, I know masks haven't left it, but please, if you can, wear your mask if you're not feeling well, and try to stay, clean your areas. The most amazing thing is to please get vaccinated and to stay away from people if you are sick. Stay home. Updates. Summer information is posted in our Malden ps.org and the website, so you can look at the summer programs for most. There are other summer programs, and the coordinators of the programs are going to start calling caregivers to let them know about the status of the summer programs for students. Our kindergarten student enrollment is open. Please go to the website, and you can do it 3 ways on how you can register students. One is online, the other one is making an appointment, and the other one is to just go and stop by our Welcome Center and pick up a hard copy and fill it out and submit it. So there are 3 ways to register. If you're not so sure, there are phone numbers where you can contact our people. We are going to get back to you within 3 hours, 4 hours. If not, you have my cell number, you can call me. Now we have a fantastic things. Yes, wonderful things are happening across the district. Magic happens in every single school thanks to our amazing teachers and school leaders. So tonight we have an amazing history teacher from the Malden High School who is going to present to us a proposal of what makes our schools amazing. Yes, so Mr. Joaquin.
Dr. Noriega, good evening, Mr. Chair, dear committee members. I want to firstly thank you, Dr. Noriega, for putting this on the docket for the school committee, and thanks everybody for all the work that you do.
Please tell us, this isn't about AEAP, is it?
Absolutely not. And the best word I've heard all night, and thanks for reminding everybody, Mr. Christensen, is compromise. Yes, compromise towards the progressive goal of excellence, freedom, and reason in education. That's what came to my mind. 2 years ago, I was able to connect with the friend of mine. She's a director at the Global Institute at Tufts University. So unbeknownst to me, they have a great, incredible program that they invite about, give or take each year, anywhere from 10 to 40 public and private schools from over the country. It's not the same as Model UN. We're talking about 5 months of studying, examining, reflecting, reading, together with 2 mentors from Tufts University about a specific existential question that faces the globe. So these questions are questions that are at the heart of global affairs, international relations, and diplomacy. Last year, the question was about the rise of China, or the Chinese century, very important one. I've learned so much. Particularly from the guest speakers that they do at the beginning of the seminar conference that they have. Last year, I believe it was Professor Robert Ross. I personally learned a lot from him. This year, 2 speakers. One of them is the director of the Eurasian Studies Department at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. The other one is a professor at the Kennedy School of Government. Also, with this program, so that you know what I'm thinking about in the future, thinking about connecting also with the JFK, Fletcher School, as well as the State Department, in addition to all of that, to create a program that is geared towards global studies, international relations, one of my passionate subjects since I was a kid. Now, this university, this field trip is proposed by me and the Young Malden Diplomats Club. That was formed last year. And the Tufts University Institute for Global Leadership has offered our students this cost-free simulation. This is the 2nd year. Little background quickly. The Education for Public Inquiry and International Citizenship began inquiry in response to an appeal from Boston area teachers interested in making current global issues and corresponding materials accessible and available to their students. Now they have about 25 public and private schools that are approximately 400 that have participated annually in this program. This proposed field trip is the capstone to this seminar. 4 months, the capstone where students go to the United Nations. It's the only part of the country that is international territory. I've been personally there at least 4 or 5 times. I've taken my nieces, my parents, my family members. It's an incredible experience educationally. The program itself is run by the United Nations once you go in. The cost is minimal to the students as far as to get in. It's $15. And we'd like to make this opportunity a real possibility for our students. Yeah, and I think all of you would agree that the things that we remember from school, especially those of us that loved school and college, are these opportunities outside of the classroom. And once again, thank you very much. I think the details are there. I'll be more than happy to share with you the whole thing. And if you have any questions for me, please do let me know. And thank you so much again.
So Superintendent, what do you
We
need
would
us
like, for us, because it's a field trip out of state,
Got
so
it.
I do need the approval from school committee. And also, we are doing some fundraising, but basically, we need your approval because it will be taking 20 students, 3 teachers out of Massachusetts.
All right, very good. So there you have it. Let's go to Mr. Weldai first.
I was going to make a motion to approve.
Okay.
You know, thank you so much for doing this. You know, I'm a Tufts kid, so I remember, I wasn't a part of, I wasn't a part of EPIC. My friends who were much smarter than I was were a part of EPIC, and they loved being able to work with high school students, and Tufts should be doing more with Malden, right? They do a lot with Medford and Somerville, and do more with Malden, and I'm glad that you're a part of this, and that the kids are going to get this experience. This is awesome. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to make that motion.
And the Fletcher School is the second, I believe, no, the third one in the country in international relations. So the
It's
JFK
amazing.
School of Government,
Yeah.
Georgetown School of Foreign Affairs, and Tufts is number 3.
And our kids should be,
Yes.
that's the goal.
Is there a
That's what they're
second?
going.
Seconded by Mr. Bernard. So any question, did you have a question, Mr. Bernard? Okay. Yep. Any questions?
Do you
do
need
see Mr. Drummey?
chaperones?
All right, let's have the clerk call the roll. Oh, Jen, stand by, Madam Clerk. Spadafora.
There we go. Sorry to hold up the vote because I really like this, so. And I honestly wish I was back in high school because I would want to be in your class. So I think what you're doing is fantastic. My only question is, and it looks like it's very small funds, approximately $3,000. You're going to hopefully get some fundraising, and
We take donations.
I guess my question was going to be if we don't get the money, but I just feel like we're going to get it, so my question's probably moot. Transportation's just via bus, and any, because usually when we go out, our teachers or somebody's CPR trained to, okay, there you go. So 2.
The 3 teachers.
3.
The 3 teachers. So
I'm
the ratio,
CPR trained, yeah.
so the ratio of students is actually, we are saying more adults because it's New York. So instead of 2 chaperones, they're going to be 3.
Okay,
And they're
yeah,
trained.
sounds great to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Madam Clerk. Can you press It's not working.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes, definitely.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora? Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Iber? Mayor Christensen?
Yes. So that carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank
Other
you.
way around. Other way around.
Absolutely. Only, the best is yet to come.
Shukram. All right, and another great news, so there's amazing things happening once again in the district for students and adults. And we want to say congratulations to Dr. Diaz because he, a year ago, but he was accepted to the Fulbright studies abroad, and it was canceled because of COVID. Now he received another notification that he is going to Singapore. So we have amazing directors and instructions in here. So it was approved before by school committee. I just want to make sure that we are going to recognize him because it doesn't happen everywhere. So we are very happy for you and very proud of your work, Dr. Diaz, and I want to go with you to Singapore. Please take me, so thank you. So I just wanted to, yes. We also know that our former students make wonderful things in the district. So on April 29, there was the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and there were 8 former students, alumni that were the recipients of the Hall of Fame. So we want to say congratulations to them and their families. There are wonderful things happening at the Malden Public Schools and also the history that they're making. So we just want to say congratulations to them. Then when we say excellence is happening everywhere in every single school, we had 2 wonderful students, Haley Tran and AJ, who on April 16 were the recipient of recognizing the efforts for the Civil Air Patrol. Mayor, I forgot your name, my goodness, Christensen. I was
I've
gonna say
been
Gary.
called worse. I've been called worse lately, so that's fine.
And Ms. Murphy, and of course the parents and one wonderful teachers from BB attended the ceremony. So when I say wonderful things happening in all the schools, is because we have these 2 students that fulfill all requirements in the areas of leadership, area-based education, and fitness. AJ was promoted to the rank of Cadet Technician Sergeant. Haley was promoted to the rank of Cadet Airman First Class. These students are also learning how to fly some planes. So this is outstanding what they're learning. And I have to say that AJ is one of the role model students. Yes, it's from BB. He also volunteered. Some parents saw him, some people saw him helping the mayor and us in the community when we were distributing the COVID testing kits. He was there. It was cold, but he was there opening boxes and helping the community. The other wonderful things that are happening is across the board, we are engaging more and more with students, doing coding, programming, implementing the critical thinking, problem solving, real life application, and making sure that they're getting to be ready for life. So we see students across the district doing amazing things, engaging in high-level tasks. We also have students who are using new technology to reinvent things. So they are becoming very creative, and that's one thing that we want to make sure that they're learning from whatever they're learning in class, they're applying to their lives. So the next picture also shows that the students are not sitting just listening to people. Teachers are doing an amazing job actually making sure that the students are doing the thinking and all the work. When we talk about curriculum, how this is happening, it is because we are already, thanks to all the work that the teachers are doing with the directors, is we are already engaging in the high quality instruction. That means that we are doing more of the standard-based instruction. That is something that we decided to do this year to make sure that we are going to follow these standards. We know that those are the standards per grade level that master skills that students really need in order to be successful. We want to make sure that all these high instructional practices, high quality materials, high quality and diverse curricula, and standard-based instruction happens for all students, in all grades, in all schools, and we can see that happening already. Last time I presented this slide, we are going to adopt a new curriculum, and yes, we are actually adopting the ELA curriculum, and we will go over all the different meetings that we were so happy that, Mr. Gray, you actually were part of that, so you can help me a little bit there. So we also want to make sure that we are going to engage in high-quality professional development. And we will, I want to thank Victoria Mulkern and Emily Peña for leading the work with the ELA literacy curriculum. So we have a timeline, and actually Ms. Mulkern was able to keep up the timeline, pushing the groups. We sent surveys to families. We got 50 people who wanted to be part of the community of deciding about our new curriculum. We sent a survey to all educators, and 40 of them wanted to be there. A total of 1,100 responses that we wanted to make, that people wanted to be part of the new curriculum decision-making. That means a lot of parents, caregivers, students, teachers wanted to be engaged in this conversation. We couldn't have a large group, so the committee decided to do it, not to go over more than 30 of them, but it ended up to be 37 people. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I moved. Slide, next slide. That one. So we had stakeholders in here. There were 11 teachers, 5 administrators, 15 caregivers, 2 school committee members. Thank you, Ms. Mack, for also being part of that conversation, and 4 Malden High School students. This is the first time I hear that we have so many involvement, interest from the community, and also representation. That 15 caregivers is really amazing, the input that parents gave us. Because there were so many of them, or so many stakeholders, there were small committees, subcommittees. They met, they came out with a criteria. Each of the committees had at least 10 to 11 meetings. This new curriculum is grade level, and it's going to give us the opportunity to supplement for ELs and also for students with disabilities, covering the same standards as everybody else. Just more of the scaffolding will happen. So after 4 weeks of the subcommittee work, there were 3 programs that were decided out of 7, and that was Amplify, CK, LA, ELA, then Interreading, and Imagine Learning, EL Education. We piloted this, well, we sounds like a lot of people. The district piloted this in 5 schools, and we have grades K to 2. There were 23 teachers who actually wanted to pilot this. There was this passion for actually getting something new for our students. We have 8 teachers in grades 3 to 5 and 3 teachers in grades 6 to 8. We also had 2 teachers for ESL, and there were 2 separate for ILP, special education classrooms, and 7 in co-taught classes. So we actually make sure that we got the whole gamut of the programming, and we wanted to have the experience in every single classroom instead of buying a curriculum that will apply only to few. We wanted to make sure it's for all. After all of this, I'm going to move to 2 more. I'm going to go to the Amplify, that's the one. So our new curriculum is Amplify CKLA. And the most amazing thing about this is that we can actually introduce multiple modalities to assess mastery of content, and also there are opportunities for differentiation and acceleration, which is one of the themes that we are discussing lately. But we want to make sure that teachers have the tools to implement in school. So what are the next steps? Next slide. Is we have to order the materials, so teachers will have it in this summer and ready to go in the school year. There are stipends that are going to be offered, and Ms. Victoria Mulkern is going to send all this information for teachers to work during the spring and the summer 2022. We are going to be also stipends for small groups of teachers to develop lessons, how to differentiate instruction, how to accelerate, how to look at the scope and sequence, and be able to incorporate all of this in September. So there's a lot of opportunities for teachers to work together. This is a great accomplishment by the district, I have to say, because in a very short period of time, 4 months, we were able to engage so many people and be able to make a decision. So I just want to say thank you to all the teachers, all the parents, all the caregivers, and of course, the 2 amazing school community members who spent a lot of hours with us. So thank you, and thank you, Victoria and Emily. So, any questions about that? No? I hope you liked the experience. All right, on that note, we are going to close, or I'm going to close my report with another school, Linden STEM Academy, and we have Rafael Garcia, the principal of the school, who is going to give us an update, and after that, we are going to conclude I will conclude my report.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair and school committee members. So I'd like to start with some highlights about Linden, and I'd like to move down on that list to our diversity. So we are the second most diverse middle school in the state and the fourth most diverse elementary school in the state. And last month we had a chance to, or an opportunity to celebrate our diversity with our multicultural night. It was an amazing night where we had students celebrate and their families coming together in Linden and celebrating their diversity through food, through dance, through music. It was an amazing night. We had families together with our staff, and that's something that we're going to be embedding in almost everything that we do at Linden whenever we're celebrating students' work and achievement. I'd like to move back up on that list to talk about some of the programs that we have at Linden. So we have a positive behavioral interventions and support system, our PBIS program, and our motto is safe, respectful, and responsible. And what we do is to help promote a lot of this, we have our LSA News on Tiger TV, which is a new feature at Linden this year. We have weekly and monthly school-wide grade level celebrations to recognize students' success. And to talk a little bit about our RTI, we have 6 math assistants, 4 literacy assistants, and a full-time Title I educator. So we also have a state-of-the-art STEM classroom makerspace that came to us through a grant prior to my arrival at Linden, but we worked with the Boston Celtics, GE, and the Fab Foundation through Brilliant Career Play. And I'd like to thank Ms. Degelman for helping to make sure that that space was opened. And our students are doing amazing work there, creating using laser printers, also 3D printers. They're doing a great job with that. We do have some clubs. We have our student-focused clubs, like our SDG Club. So the SDG Club is working towards making the world a better place, doing some project-based learning, and presenting to the community, meeting with our community to talk about issues that they're trying to solve in their class through their curriculum. We also have a Student Government Club, and the Student Government Club is really in its developing stage, where they're going to be working towards creating the structures that our future middle schoolers are going to have for our student government. We also have a school-wide GSA, our Gender Sexuality Alliance, and a couple more things are our Catapult Learning. So this year we are working with Catapult Learning. We have 42 students enrolled, and it's a tutoring program for our grades 1 to 3 students that are working on closing some of their gaps. And it's great because we have those teachers and tutors that are going right into the classroom to help our students. We did take a little bit of a pause, but we do have a RIDES program, and that is our reimagining diversity, equity, diversity and equity in our schools. Okay, so for DESE accountability, we are, this was in the middle of COVID, but we are at 59%, substantial progress towards our targets. Okay. This is going into a little bit more detail, but just some highlights for our DESE accountability for Linden. Compared to the state, Linden was above the state average in ELA in grades 3 by 8%, in grade 4 by 10%, grade 7 by 15%, and grade 8 by 17% for an overall increase of 6%. We are above the state average in math in grade 7 by 5% and grade 8 by 9%. Next slide. So some more accountability data for Linden. This is our iReady data. K, 1, and 8 are on a trajectory to meet our updated end of the year 2022 target. Grade 2, 3, and 5, we need to double that, but I think that's something that we can achieve. Our grade 6 needs to increase by 20% from our winter target, but we feel that, with our strong instruction in class and our students are highly motivated, we are going to meet that goal too. Okay, so this is taking another look at our accountability iReady overall growth. So our on or above grade level increased from 39% to 51%. Our one grade level below decreased from 36 to 30%. 2 grade levels below decreased from 13 to 9%. And 3 or more grade levels below decreased from our 12% to 10%. Just a little bit more data here for you. So our accountability data for IXL, this is our math data. Grades K and 1 are on trajectory to meet our updated end of the year 2022 target. Grade 2 and 8 need to approximately increase on an additional 20 to 25% from our winter data. And we think, with our students being highly motivated, our teachers working, doing amazing work with our students, and in the help and support of our coaches and literacy assistants and math assistants, that we are going to meet these targets. In this last slide, I would just like to introduce one of our new members of the staff, and that's Tyrone the Tiger. Tyrone is with us, and he helps promote our safe, respectful, and responsible motto. And he's at our celebrations, and once in a while you'll see him walking around, waving to students and taking photo opportunities with our mayor too. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, well done.
Okay.
Thank you. We want to also thank Julie Jones and Stacy Scott for supporting you, and it's a great team that you have. So
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Jones, for being here for support tonight.
Great.
And that concludes my
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions of our superintendent? If not, we will proceed down with the remainder of the agenda. So next is under subcommittee reports. Let's hear from Mr. Gray on technology and student services. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a short report and a short presentation afterwards. The last subcommittee meeting was April 13th of the Technology and Student Resources Subcommittee. Attending was myself, Adam Weldai, Sharon Zyberg, Keith Bernard, Superintendent Legia, and Assistant Superintendent Larissa. We're investigating the subcommittee name change and working with our clerk Shirley and legal team to make sure that it's done properly and legally. The next item was correcting one of our prior mistakes. We nominated Mr. Weldai to be the secretary for the team, and that passed unanimously. That will take a huge workload off of my shoulders. Assistant Superintendent Larissa Doherty will be helping to schedule a working group to iron out strategic planning, technology planning for the school district this summer. This month, the April Technology Subcommittee meeting was supposed to be the last one for this school season, unless something urgent happened, and something kind of urgent did come up. We're working to schedule an urgent meeting probably sometime in mid-May, so that we can look over as a subcommittee and ratify a staff acceptable technology use agreement. That has come up, so we're probably going to meet via Zoom to work on that. So with that being said, we have Director Rodriguez here today. He gave a wonderful presentation last year about the technology resources, an overview of the enterprise for the city and the school department, and I've asked Director Rodriguez to please come forward and make a presentation to us again tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez, it will be brief. Well, you can already tell that because I haven't turned your mic on. Hold on a second. All right, Mr. Rodriguez.
Let's see. Can you transfer that feed from the console to the screen? Garrett. I never underestimate your abilities.
So, Mr. Rodriguez, while you're doing that, can we dispense with another item? We'll let you set up.
Absolutely, do that.
All right. Let's take up Mr. McCarthy with the Superintendent Evaluation Ad-Hoc Subcommittee. Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My report will be very brief. It's in regards to the superintendent evaluation. Myself, Ms. Spadafora, and Ms. Zyberg met with Superintendent Noriega recently. The presentation that the superintendent made was in regards to her goals that are part of the evaluation process, and the completed goals that she made. She has been submitting that evidence into the form that has to be submitted to DESE. She's also currently working towards other goals that she has been working towards for the evaluation. And it is my understanding that every school committee member needs to fill out the evaluation form as an individual school committee member and then send that back to me. I could also email the full committee if you want, Mr. Chair, with that evaluation form, and so that everyone has it to be able to fill that out. And once everyone completes that, we would review that as a full school committee, and then we would send off a final version of that evaluation form to DESE for their documentation, because that's a part of the evaluation process per DESE. So that is basically what I have right now as a report from the evaluation subcommittee. But at this point, I can defer to Ms. Spadafora and Ms. Zyberg if they have any additional comments for the subcommittee.
I think they're good on their end. Mr. McCarthy, thank you for the update. And what I'd ask of you is to email all the members with a date that you would like the information back.
Sure, I can. I'll also attach with the email that evaluation form so that everyone has it, so they can fill that out and then get that back to me. But I will set a date as to when when I need that back.
Very good. All right, there you
Thank
have
you.
it, everyone. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Let's check in with Mr. Drummey, Public Facilities and Safety Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Facilities and Safety Committee met on Tuesday, April 19th. In attendance were committee members myself, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Gray, and Ms. Rose Iberg. Also in attendance was Superintendent Noriega Murphy, Assistant Superintendent Pamela McDonald, Police Chief Kevin Mollis, and Captain Glenn Cronin. It was basically a debriefing of what happened at the high school on April 7th. The meeting was policy and the school emergency operations plan. These plans are revised at least once a year, if not more often. And the emergency operations plan is posted on the public school website, Malden Public Schools. There is also a district recovery team that handles emotional support during and after traumatic events that occur during the school. This past Saturday on the 30th, there was a series of workshops that was started between Malden Public Schools and the Malden Police Department, which is to encourage a better rapport between students and the police department itself. Chief Mollis then went on to describe the events of what happened at the high school. They received a call at 12:14 that a student on the 4th floor was injured as a result of a wound suffered by an object in the hand of another student. The school was placed on lockdown. first responders and Cataldo ambulance responded to the school. The victim was cared for quickly, efficiently, and while the suspect was apprehended and arrested on site while the lockdown was lifted. There was a conversation between the superintendent, your office, and Mr. Mastrangelo about, again, because the press showed up and they wanted to get that taken care of quickly, so that was taken care of. Once the lockdown was lifted, there was a communication sent out by the superintendent to the parents of the students to let them know what was going on, and another after the lockdown was lifted to let them know exactly everything was okay. Principal Mastrangelo communicated to the students at the end of the day what transpired. There was also support services there for any students that wanted to talk to anyone before they went home. They had counselors, social services that was there. And then the next day, Assistant Superintendent Pam McDonald had enough support at the students that come to school. If they wanted to talk to someone again, it was there for them to take advantage of. Mr. McCarthy had asked a question about how many high school monitors there were, of which I believe there are 3, but only 2 were on duty that day. So he's going to discuss maybe increasing that number at the budget subcommittee meeting coming up. Ms. Zyberg had received a phone call, excuse me, from a constituent from a parent about a child who was too disturbed to go to school the next day as they did not feel safe there. While there is staff on hand to help the child cope with this feeling, they weren't that comfortable talking to support in the school and maybe take a mental health day, so to speak. The problem with that is if the district does give a mental health day, it has to be treated like a snow day, so you make it up on the back end. So you can't really, I mean, you can take a mental health day, but it's going to count as an absence. But if that's the case, the superintendent recommended if when the parent calls in and the student does not want to go to school, they will send support to the child, to the student's house. That way they might feel more comfortable talking to someone and more better surroundings as opposed to being at school. And last but not least, no, that's it. That's my
Okay, thank
Yep,
you,
that's my
Mr.
report.
Drummey. So,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, thank you. And so nothing that you took from that meeting that the school committee needs to act upon this evening?
No, personally, I think the first responders did a great job. Principal Mastrangelo had his staff. They locked it down. They held the elevator for the first responders, so they get everybody up to the 4th floor. Talking with staff and students, they found out where the victim was, where the alleged perpetrator was. So everything was taken care of swiftly and efficiently. They did a great job.
All right, very good. Thank
So
you, Mr. Drummey.
nothing needs to be done, but nothing needs to be done.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Drummey. Any questions of Mr. Drummey? If not, you ready to rock, Mr. Rodriguez?
Did you press? There you go. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'll try to be brief and give you a brief synopsis of some of the things that have been going on. It's been a very challenging couple of years, as everyone knows, but I think we've persevered and moved forward through a lot of this. And excuse me. So basically, currently what we have now is we have a network operations center at the high school that is the centralized distribution hub for all of the district. All of our bandwidth and all of our content filtering comes into that facility and then is distributed across the entire district through dedicated fiber optic links. Currently at that high school, we have about 40 servers in virtualized states, as well as about 8 terabytes worth of data that is stored and backed up. Across the entire enterprise, the network fabric is managed by the city, and that's for reasons for economy of scale as well as other infrastructures that need to be linked for environmental control systems, access, security, and the like. Pre-pandemic, we did a lot of work in the district with additional funds from E-rate. We updated the entire district network infrastructure to state-of-the-art switch fabric, running at 10 gigs, and it's also 40 gig capable. We spent over $600,000, and the goal was to build a network that is more akin to a collegiate level environment. Building high schools that can only accommodate the technologies of the past really wasn't an option, and you'll see as we move forward that we needed to have that foundation in place to have the kind of capacity and abilities that we want in the future, especially for our kids moving forward as they leave this environment and go on to college. We doubled the bandwidth going into the entire school district prior to the pandemic. We currently support about 5 gigs per second, so that quick math is about 2 terabytes of data per day that flows through the network in the high school and gets distributed through the K through 8s. We updated and standardized all of the firewall and filtering content. We use deep level packet inspection firewalls. I've standardized those on certain vendors that I utilize across the entire enterprise. That way we have a common fabric, common security set, so our vendors can be applied for police, fire, schools, city. Again, economies of scale as we move forward. We updated all of the Wi-Fi access points throughout the entire district. We spent over $300,000, and we have 802.11ac high-density access points, primarily because we're running so many Chromebooks at this point. We also spent a great deal of time standardizing all of our telecom throughout the district, updating all of the phone systems, and we're exploring updating all of the intercom systems throughout the entire school district at the moment. Challenges of the pandemic. As we all know, we all got turned on a dime when this all came down. We had to go from a model where we had all of our end users inside of our facilities, and we were taking our internet content and delivering inside of our buildings, to all of a sudden casting everybody on the outside of that perimeter, but yet needing authentication for those end users, those Chromebooks, so they had to access resources within our school system. So we had about 72 hours to reconfigure and reverse the entire network system, as well as the content filtering. That took 72 hours is not too bad of a turnaround for that kind of use. We implemented a remote assistance help desk for parents and students for the Chromebooks, connection support with full multi-language chat functions, servicing over 1,600 calls during the pandemic. That really helped our students and the parents with that quick accommodation of the technology that they had to now be running at home. We transitioned over 6,000 Chromebooks to remote learning 100%, and we also deployed recently 650 laptops to all of our teaching staff so that we could further accommodate that remote learning. We're hybrid right now. We're also having a number of cybersecurity initiatives. We're providing training and assessment for our entire staff. We're converting our virtualized environments to hybrid backup platforms that'll be more in line with current technologies. I'm trying to mimic all of the platforms that we're utilizing at the city level and standardizing them across. Deploying inverse chain technology, that's just a fancy way of saying that we have state-of-the-art backup systems. We can actually replicate in 15-minute increments all of our data. Especially important with the real threats of ransomware and the like. We can take snapshots throughout the day, and then we have a fallback position should, in the event of an attack, we can restore all of those data sets in any 15-minute increment throughout the day or a week or a month. We also have ransomware and artificial intelligence software that's deployed across the network. Standard antivirus these days is not enough. We have to actually look at the way that the network traffic is happening and traversing across the network. That's how these ransomware attacks happen. They spread like wildfire laterally. You have to be able to see that network traffic in real time, and the software will shut down all of those nodes if it sees any kind of anomalous activity throughout the network. humans really don't have the ability to react as quickly as these things spread, hence the need for the artificial intelligence software platforms. We're also putting forth mandatory multi-factor authentication. It's a requirement that's happening. All cybersecurity insurance policies require it. It's a little bit more of a couple steps that users have to take, but in the end, it's the only way that we can really protect and tighten up our security across the entire enterprise. As far as what we're doing in the future, we have allocated quite a bit of money in the last couple of years on technology. The city has generously donated an additional $1.1 million for an additional 2,800 Chromebooks that will be coming into the district. We have $1.9 million grant for Chromebooks that will also be utilizing that. We're updating all of the Active Directory servers across the K through 8s. That'll help with authentication at the K through 8 level, as well as increasing speed. We're ordering roughly $900,000 worth of state-of-the-art touch screens for the teachers in the classrooms. We have Chromebook replacements for the next 2 years of roughly $1.6 million. Our annual tech budget is $600,000 for the schools, which has been adequate up to this point with all of the additional monies we have, as well as hotspot deployments. We got $90,000 for deploying hotspots to some of our lesser served populations. In total, we're talking probably $6.2 million of investment in technology. We would never be able to do that if we did not have the platform and the foundation of technology that we've made the early investments in. We currently have 7,000 Chromebooks, and now they're starting to matriculate back into the buildings. So our capacity is there now to be able to support this in real time, as well as having the performance for all of the testing, for MCAS and the like. I don't think we've had any outages or bottlenecks of service for all of our testing throughout the district at this point. That was quick and fast, because I know you wanted to get it over with. You've already heard this a couple times.
For sure, yep.
If
Well done.
I can answer any questions you have, or?
Any questions of the members? Okay, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Anthony.
No problem.
I don't have the level of skill or talent that you have at this, but I do have a few questions.
Shoot.
You know, that hopefully you can help me understand. The first one, this is a tough one to ask. In your opinion, is 5 gigabyte per second inbound enough at this time? Or do you see a need going forward?
I think we're probably looking at an additional $168,000, I believe, in E-rate funding for the next fiscal year. And that's limited to what's called level 1 funding. We can only use it for certain aspects of education, one of those being bandwidth. So as of right now, we have 5 gig coming in, gig pipe to every school. I'll probably be increasing that to probably doubling it yet again, because the content and the streaming of video, all of the tools that teachers need to really deliver this content to the students is just ever increasing. So it's never enough bandwidth.
That's why I asked, because of the way education is changing and the richness of the content through a large citywide system like this. 5 gigabyte just seems a little tight. Who is our hybrid vendor?
For?
You said we have a hybrid storage system, I think, in one of your slides?
Yeah, I'd rather not say.
Good enough.
I
understand.
But it is an industry standard and best practices.
There are only so many companies that do it, and
Yep.
I understand not wanting to say. As far as multi-factor authentication, does that include telephones, sort of like a duo authentication type system? Are we thinking about that for staff? Kicking it up to that level?
It could. depends on, you know, how we wind up deploying it. We'll be deploying it in different ways for different silos throughout the city, for law enforcement, police, city.
I think you'd really need it for law enforcement at least. But a lot of school systems and universities, they're going over to do authentication. That's because they found all the lesser basic authentication and multi-factor weren't enough. That maybe for insurance reasons, like you said, they're requiring higher and higher levels.
Right, the requirements for this, at least for the city level, are much more stringent and for law enforcement than they are for education.
Okay.
So, I mean, for our internal systems, given this is a $200 million corporation, the multi-factor authentication is almost absolutely necessary on this side of the fence. But I also have been trying to balance the usability of the system against the security threat matrix.
I understand. We don't want to burden our teachers with extra. But then again, if we have phishing schemes and hacking and attempted viral attacks, maybe at some point in the future, we maybe have to look at that.
For certain
from
systems,
a budget standpoint.
multi-factor authentication makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
But not for all systems, especially if they're just web-based and all that content is being delivered internally. So we kind of have almost a little bit of a buffer zone inside of the school systems that we're disseminating out.
Got it. All right, that's all I have to ask.
Thank you.
I apologize if I geeked out a little bit, but I really
Trust me, he's
enjoyed
used to it.
some of what he's.
I get 3-4 calls a day from him. So.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thanks,
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. All right, everybody, so let's see if we can plow through here the rest of the agenda. So next up, Mr. Weldai with the Budget Subcommittee update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be very brief. The Budget Subcommittee met Monday, April 25th, had our first preliminary meeting with the Superintendent and our Finance Director, Mertz. We got an overview of the budget process, so the work that they've done in preparation for putting this year's budget together, all the extensive steps, the factors that go into it, and then we looked at the bottom line number, which we were very pleased to announce was a 5% increase over years past, which was one of the highest city contributions in quite a long time, which we appreciate. And our next steps are that we are tentatively planning to meet again on Thursday, May 12th at 6 p.m. via Zoom to go over the line items and sort of see how we reconcile the number that we have and the number that we need to get to and what steps we need to take to get there. So we'll do the more nitty-gritty versus the high-level stuff at our meeting tentatively scheduled for May 12th at 6 p.m.
Perfect. Any questions of Mr. Weldai? Hearing none. Motions and resolutions. School choice vote. Mr. Weldai.
Oh, I need that paper back. No, it's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just the annual vote that the district takes. All districts must report their school choice participation plans to DESE by June 1st. Every year we traditionally take this vote. It tends to go the same way. The inter-district school choice law requires that we accept incoming school choice students unless, from other cities, unless our school committee votes not to participate or votes to limit the number of incoming students in particular grades. We have to submit our response to DESE by June 1st, which is why we're doing it at this meeting, because it's our last meeting before June 1st. This is the complicated one where where a yes vote means that we would be accepting students from out of district, and a no vote means that we will not participate in school choice, and we would continue the way we have been for a number of years. So I believe our superintendent, I'll kick it to her, recommends a no vote for us.
Okay, motion by Mr. Weldai,
Yes.
seconded by Ms. Spadafora.
Second.
Any questions? Mr. Bernard.
Just real quick, I mean, if we were to say yes, do we have any understanding of any numbers of people that want to go and do this?
Open the floodgates.
Yeah.
The concern with doing that is we are already reaching the maximum capacity in our buildings. So if we take from outside, we would have to actually, if we have an increase in-house of students that live in Malden, we won't be able to serve our own students. That would be,
Yep. don't-
otherwise, if we had the space, it would be great, but we are already at maximum some buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Seeing no other questions, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
No.
Mr. McCarthy?
No.
Ms. Spadafora? No. Ms. Macklin? No. Mr. Weldai?
No.
Mr. Gray? No. Mr. Bernard?
No.
Ms. Rose Zybert? No. Mayor Christensen?
No, that carries unanimously. Next order of business, staff acceptable use technology policy. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're kind of doing this a little bit out of order, seeing as we haven't had a subcommittee meeting yet to approve it. So I'm not entirely sure what the protocol is to approve this at this point.
I think we would like a recommendation from your subcommittee first.
But we're not going to have a subcommittee meeting to review it till next week, I think was what Assistant Doherty asked for.
Yep, which is fine, right? 'Cause we're still
So
gonna-
can we, is it possible, is this time sensitive is what I'm trying to get at?
Do we motion to send it to technology?
Was this already with technology or no?
It kind of was, but the edits to the acceptable use policy didn't come up till after the subcommittee,
Yeah.
the last subcommittee meeting.
So Superintendent, can it be held over to our next meeting?
It should go to policy. It has to go to policy.
Yeah, so the way it was sort of explained was apparently, we need to look at it in technology next week, and then it gets bumped over to policy, and then after policy, it gets reviewed.
Yeah.
So, I'm just trying to get a handle on how to
Yep.
follow this.
So just have your subcommittee meeting as planned and then
Okay.
report back out to us at our June
Okay,
meeting.
I just wanted to make sure this wasn't time sensitive.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay,
All right,
all right,
so we're
Thank
gonna,
you.
no action there.
no action.
All right, next up, school improvement plans, Ms. Spadafora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
I thought you'd never say that. All right. So motion to table, seconded by Mr. Bernard. Actually, I shouldn't even ask for a motion, because now we have to do a roll call.
Have to.
So let's have our clerk call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard? Yes. Ms. Rose Zybert? Yes. Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. Let's stay with Ms. Spadafora to talk about Program of Studies, Pre-K 12.
Just another very simple one. Our administration has been working on the program of studies, and it just needs to go to policy. So my motion is to send the program of studies K through 12 to policy subcommittee.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Bernard. Any questions on that? Chair hears none. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray? Yes. Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Zybert? Yes. Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. And let's stay with Ms. Spadafora on Handbook Pre-K 12. We're not paying her enough, I think.
I wish I could just say ditto right now. This is just a motion to send the handbook that has been worked on by administration to policy and procedure.
Motion seconded by Mr. Weldai. Any questions on it? Chair hears none. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Seibert? Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. And guess who has the next motion? District definition of educational equity.
Just definition of, yeah, I guess, educational equity. Another very simple one, but it's not going to policy. I'd like to make a motion to send the district's definition of equity to the Equity and Opportunity Subcommittee.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Bernard. Any questions on that? Chair has none. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Seibert? Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. All right, everybody, so take a few points of personal privilege before we go into executive session pending a vote of the school committee. Again, executive session will be to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2022. The second item is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. Supervisor of attendance, because an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on our bargaining position. Final item is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with school committee council for a similar reason, because an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. Any brief points of personal privilege? Mr. Drummey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real brief. May 8th at 9:30, we'll be having the Ward 1 Mother's Day breakfast at Anthony's. It'll be in the Blue Room. It'll be from 9:30 to 11:30. Any child wants to bring their mother, they get a free breakfast, and they'll look real good, and maybe even a flower, and there'll be raffles. So happy Mother's Day to everyone, and come on down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Drummey. Let's go to Ms. Macklin.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just something real quick from Malden CPAC. It's Children's Mental Health Week, and tomorrow it's lighted up green for Children's Mental Health Week. And so tomorrow, Tuesday, May 3rd, at Malden Police Department Community Room at 3 p.m., the Malden Police and Elliott Community Services are asking you to join for a ceremony to commemorate Children's Mental Health Week.
And as you could tell, Ms. Macklin, I'm a day early.
Yes.
So if you see me in this tie tomorrow, you'll understand why. All right, thank you, Ms. Macklin. Ms. Rose Zyberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just thank the Linden for welcoming me to the multicultural event that they held. It was fantastic, and also just being Teacher Appreciation Week, I think it's important just to thank all the teachers out there.
Very good. Thank you. And seeing no other lights, we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Motion by
Motion for
Mr.
executive
Bernard,
session.
seconded by Mr. Drummey. Clerk will call the roll. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora? Yes. Ms. Macklin?
Yes.
Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Yes.
Ms. Rose Seibert? Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. We'll now go into executive session.
Yes. All right, I forgot, Marge, I know. God, I need to be reminded, I forgot.
All right. School committee is back. We'll entertain any motions. Motion by Ms. Spadafora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we extend the contract of our attendance officer from July 1st to January 31st, 2023.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr.
Second.
Bernard. Any questions on that? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard? Yes. Ms. Rose Zeiber? Yes. Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. Any other business? Ms. Spadafora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we increase the salary of our hourly rate of our school committee council to $275 per hour, effective July 1st, 2022.
Second. Seconded by Mr. Weldai. Any questions, queries, qualms, concerns? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard? Yes. Ms. Rose Zeiber? Yes. Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. Hopefully there's more business. Any other business? Ms. Spadafora?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Drummey. Now, you know we have to call the roll.
Mr. Drummey?
Okay.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Ms. Macklin? Yes. Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Sure, why not?
Ms. Rose Zeiber? Mayor Christensen?
With pleasure. School committee is hereby adjourned.
Good night, kids.
Good night.
Recording stopped.